Hello, Paranormal M viewers. It's freezing. I've been looking forward to sitting here, sharing my mysterious experiences with you, and then drifting off to sleep. Thanks so much for sending in your stories. Now go ahead and get into bed, put on your headphones, snuggle up under the covers, and let's dive into today's mysteries. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you, my dear viewers. So, I've been sitting on this one for a while, mostly because I wanted to see how people reacted to my other story first. This isn't the scariest thing you'll ever hear, but it's one of those moments that still bugs me, especially because I wasn't alone. 2 other people saw it, and we all remember it the exact same way. This happened a long time ago, more like 14 years back now. I'm 30, so I was around 16 at the time. And you need a little context first. My parents were huge yard sale people. Like, if there was a handwritten sign on a telephone pole that said, "Sale," my mom would practically slam the brakes. We didn't have a lot of money, so our house was filled with secondhand stuff. Decor, furniture, you name it. And my mom had this phase where she was decorating our living room with a safari vibe. Think warm browns, animal prints, the whole living room jungle thing. She loved it. I hated it. One weekend, she came home from a sale at this nicer neighborhood with 2 matching lamps. Nothing creepy about them. No antique look, no cracks, no weird stains, nothing. Just normal lamps. They honestly looked like they'd barely been used, like the kind of thing someone sells because they redecorate every other month. She sets both lamps up in the living room, tries one, and it works fine. Tries the other one, nothing. Dead. She swapped bulbs, messed with the switch, tried different outlets, still nothing. So she did what my mom always did. She took the good bulb out, because why waste a perfectly fine bulb on a lamp that doesn't work, and put the older bulb back in it. Then she set the broken lamp near the TV anyway, just to complete the look. And that was it. That lamp just sat there, for like a year, maybe more. Nobody touched it. Nobody used it. Honestly, I forgot it even existed. Then one weekend my dad was out of town for work, and those weekends were kind of our little tradition. Me, my mom, and whatever friend I had over, we'd take over the living room and watch movies my dad would have rolled his eyes at. That night, I had my friend Kayla staying over. We decided to watch a chick flick. I'm pretty sure it was Waitress. Not scary, just one of those sad but cute movies you snack through. We're about halfway into it, totally relaxed, and then, out of nowhere, the broken lamp turns on. And I don't mean it flickered. I mean it came on like it had been working the whole time. A steady, warm glow. Kayla gasped so loud I swear she stopped breathing for a second. I felt my stomach drop, and we both looked at my mom like, "Please tell us you did that." My mom's face changed too. She didn't scream or anything, but she got this look like she was trying to stay calm on purpose. She stood up, walked over, and picked up the cord. "It's not even plugged in," she said. And she was right. The plug was just lying there. Not in the outlet, not half in, not near it, just not plugged in. Yet the lamp was on. She flipped the switch and it clicked off like normal. Then she held up the cord again, almost like she wanted us to really see that it wasn't connected to anything. She gave us this nervous laugh and sat back down. And the second she sat, like the moment her weight hit the couch cushion, the lamp turned on again. I swear to you, it was like it was waiting. Then she unscrewed the bulb completely and set it on the TV stand. We didn't finish the movie after that. We tried, but the whole vibe was ruined. Kayla kept side-eyeing the lamp base like it was going to grow teeth. The next morning, in the bright daylight, we decided to test it. Like, okay, maybe there's an explanation and we were just tired and dramatic. So my mom plugs the lamp in, screws the bulb back in, flips the switch, and nothing happens. No light. We were like, okay, maybe that bulb finally died. So she tried a brand new bulb. Still nothing. We tried different outlets, different bulbs, different angles, like idiots standing around a lamp, bargaining with physics. Nothing. Not even a flicker. At one point, we even left it switched on for hours, just to see if it would blink or hum or do anything. It stayed dead the entire day. And that's what messes with me the most. Because that night, it lit up twice while it wasn't plugged in. And then it never worked again. Like it used up its one moment of life just to remind us it could. My mom eventually unplugged it, took the bulb out, and we never had another incident. She didn't throw it away though. She kept it, because my mom keeps everything. And now it's buried somewhere in their attic like it's in timeout. But I still think about it sometimes. Not because I'm sure it was haunted or whatever, but because I can't make it make sense. And I've got 2 witnesses who still, to this day, will tell you the exact same thing. That lamp turned on while it wasn't plugged in. Twice. Like it had something to say. So, this happened the other night, and I'm still kind of weirded out when I think about it. It was around 1:10 a.m., and I finally decided I should try to sleep, because I'm one of those people who gets exhausted, then lies awake anyway. You know? Like your body's begging for rest, but your brain is ready to host a late-night talk show. So I'm in bed, getting comfortable, eyes closed, just listening to the usual nighttime sounds. The heater clicking on and off, pipes doing that faint running water thing, the slow breathing of my partner beside me. Just normal. I live in this in-between kind of place. Not deep woods, not suburbs either. More like small town energy, open fields if you drive 15 minutes one way, and then go the other direction, and boom, city lights and traffic and chaos. Anyway, I'm laying there when I notice this really faint howling outside, like barely there. It was the kind of sound where you're not even sure if it's real, or if your ears are just inventing it because you're half asleep. It wasn't constant either. It happened every few seconds. Maybe every 4 or 5 seconds, like clockwork. At first I shrugged it off. Dogs bark out here all the time. That part isn't unusual. But then, I started actually paying attention, and I realized something that made my stomach tighten a little. The howl sounded exactly the same every time. Not like a dog reacting to something. Not like it was changing pitch or getting tired or moving around naturally. It was the same sound, repeated, over and over, like a recording someone kept pressing play on. And the longer I listened, the more it felt like it was drifting closer, just slightly. Not dramatic, but enough that I noticed it getting a little clearer, a little louder, every few minutes. I remember thinking, okay, it's probably somebody's dog roaming around, or maybe a neighbor's dog stuck outside and miserable in the cold. But then my brain started offering me the less comforting options, like, what if someone's doing it on purpose, like messing with people? Or, what if something's out there and it's not a dog at all? And I'm lying there telling myself I'm being ridiculous, but I can feel that creeping fear starting to settle in, quiet and heavy. Then the dogs inside the house reacted. Every time the sound happened, they'd tense up, growl, bark under their breath like they didn't want to fully commit, but they were definitely hearing something. I had to whisper at them a few times, shushing them, trying not to wake anyone else. That's when I had this sudden thought, like a jolt. What if I left my dog outside? Like, what if he's out there freezing and that's him? So I get up and start checking around the house, trying to move quietly, heart beating way louder than it needs to. And I find him, not outside. He's asleep in this random little spot, curled up in the closet like that's his chosen bedroom tonight. So at that point I'm relieved, but also even more unsettled. Because now the question is, okay, then what am I hearing? I didn't want to, but I felt like I had to know. Curiosity does that thing where it pushes you even when fear is telling you to stay put. So I went to the front door. The second I cracked it open, the dogs inside went absolutely off, full volume barking, like they were warning me. I had to calm them down fast, and then I stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind me so I could actually listen. And this is the part that makes my skin prickle. As soon as I was outside, it was like the whole soundscape changed. I stood there for a few minutes in the cold, staring out at the street, listening hard. I could hear a couple dogs far away, little echoes bouncing around the neighborhood, but that repeating howl? Gone. Just gone. Like someone flipped a switch. After a few minutes, I couldn't take the cold anymore, so I went back inside, got back into bed, and honestly felt kind of stupid for being so scared. But then I noticed something else. Everything outside went silent, like unnaturally quiet. Even the distant dogs that had been barking earlier weren't barking anymore. And I just laid there thinking, why would it stop the second I stepped outside? Why was it so consistent? Why did it feel like it was getting closer? And why did everything go quiet right after? I don't know. Maybe it was totally normal and my tired brain turned it into a horror scene. Maybe it was a dog with a weird rhythm. Maybe it was someone messing around. I can't prove anything. But I'll tell you this. When you're lying in bed at 1 a.m., and something outside keeps repeating the same sound like it's meant to be heard, it does something to you. It made me want to ask, has anything like that ever happened to you? Like, something that felt irrationally scary, even though you couldn't explain why. What was it? And did you ever find out what it actually was? So, this happened in my apartment maybe like a month and a half ago. And I'm telling you, I've lived here for years. Quiet building, familiar creaks, normal stuff. I live alone, and I've got 3 pets, 2 cats and 1 dog. Nothing about my place has ever felt off to me. Until this. It was one of those regular evenings where I'm just at my desk, scrolling or working, and I can see the back of my couch from where I sit. That's usually where somebody's passed out, one of the cats, or my dog Benny. He's usually the chillest little lump on the couch, honestly. Anyway, Benny was laying there awake, not sleeping, just kind of watching the room. And out of nowhere, he sits up really fast, like alert, and turns his head toward the short hallway that leads to my bedroom and bathroom. And then he starts barking. Not his normal, someone's at the door bark. This was sharper, urgent, and his fur along the back of his neck kind of stood up, like that raised ridge. He was staring straight down the hallway like he could see something standing there. And I'm trying to get his attention like I always do, calling his name, snapping, doing the little, hey, it's fine. And he would not break focus. It lasted, I don't know, maybe 12 seconds, something like that. Long enough to feel weird, but short enough that I was like, okay, maybe he heard something in the walls, so I brushed it off. Then a few minutes later, like 5-ish minutes after that, one of my cats, Milo, hops down from the couch and wanders off toward the hallway. I didn't think anything of it. He does that all the time, just goes to patrol the bedroom like he pays rent. But he's gone longer than usual, like 10 minutes, maybe closer to 15. And then suddenly, Milo explodes back into the living room like he's being chased. Not regular cat zoomies. This was different. His fur was puffed up, tail huge, and he skids a little on the floor and whips around to stare back toward the hallway, the exact place he came from. Ears pinned back, body low, completely locked in. He stood there like that for almost a full minute, just frozen and staring, like he couldn't decide if he should run again or fight something invisible. And I'm sitting there watching this like, what on earth could have scared him that badly? And then, this is the part that messes with me. He kind of snaps out of it, like someone flipped a switch. He relaxes, his fur settles, and he just casually strolls away like, "Anyway, I'm going to the kitchen." Totally normal again. So now I'm like, okay, 2 pets, 2 weird reactions, same hallway. That's a little odd. But then my other cat, Miso, who'd been hanging near me while I'm at the computer, gets up and walks a few steps toward this corner of the room where Benny's food and water bowls are. And Miso stops and starts growling. I mean, a real low warning growl. Ears back, shoulders hunched, and then he hisses right at the corner, like the corner personally insulted him. I'm staring at him like, are you serious right now? Because that cat is normally a sweetheart. He's the type of cat who would apologize to a chair if he bumped into it. He never growls, like, ever. So I get up and I go over to check the corner thinking, okay, mouse, bug, something behind the bowls, whatever. I look everywhere. Behind the bowls, under the little mat, along the baseboard. Nothing. And Miso is still crouched, staring, growling like there's something standing there that I'm just not seeing. He even starts doing this slow, tense circle around the area, never taking his eyes off that corner, like he's trying to keep distance from it while also keeping it in view. And I'm not proud of this, but at that point I'm like, okay, something is up. Then the next evening, because apparently my apartment decided we're doing a 2-night event, Miso does it again. Same exact corner, same posture, ears back, growling, hissing at absolutely nothing. This time it lasts even longer, maybe 15 minutes. And I'm trying to act normal, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I was getting freaked out. Because once is weird, twice is like, okay, what are you sensing that I'm not? So I'm standing there, half nervous, half trying to make myself laugh, and I just say out loud, like into the air, something along the lines of, if there's a ghost in here, could you please be cool? Like chill ghost energy only. I don't mind a roommate if you're respectful. And honestly, if you're gonna be a ghost, please be a hot ghost. I'd rather live with a hot ghost. And after I said it, it was just quiet. No weird sounds, no footsteps, no creaks that stood out, nothing dramatic. Just me, my pets, and the world's most suspicious corner. I told a couple friends, and of course everyone had a different theory. One friend went straight to demon, which was not helpful. Another was like, it's probably just a ghost. Like that was somehow comforting. But I swear to you, I've never seen my animals react like that. Not here, not anywhere. And it wasn't one of them being weird. It was all 3 of them having these intense, specific moments, like they were tracking something that I couldn't. And I still don't know what it was. But ever since then, I catch myself glancing at that hallway a little more than I used to, just in case my roommate took my joke seriously. So this happened not long ago, February 15th, 2025, out in North Alabama. I'm not going to say the exact spot, just back roads, woods, the kind of place where the dark feels thicker than it should. And I need to say up front, we've had a few weird run-ins before. Little things, sounds, feelings, stuff you can almost convince yourself is nothing. But this night, this was the worst one. It was me, my boyfriend Jay, his sister, my best friend, Addie, and her boyfriend Aston. It's around 9:30 at night. We've just finished eating at Addie and Jay's place, and Addie's like, let's go take cute pictures. You know, just being silly. There's a little church not far from their house, maybe a mile or so, and it has this small parking lot and a graveyard right there beside it. We pull up, and at first it's totally normal, just freezing cold. Like the kind that makes you laugh because your face hurts. We're messing around, taking pictures, trying not to look stiff and miserable. But looking back, it was way too quiet. No wind, no distant cars, no background noise, just us and the cold. We're about 10 minutes into taking photos when Jay stops mid-laugh and goes, guys, what is that?" He's pointing toward the graveyard. All three of us squint, look, try to see what he's seeing, and we don't see anything. Addie kind of laughs it off like, "It's probably a deer." And we keep going because none of us want to be the one to ruin the mood. Another 10 or 15 minutes pass and Jay goes, "Wait, be quiet. Do you hear that?" And that's when we hear it. This sound, like hard clicking, almost like someone smacking two thick sticks together. Not a little noise either. It was loud, too loud. It didn't sound like frogs. It didn't sound like bugs. It sounded intentional. Aston is like, "It's probably just animals." Addie nods along, trying to be calm. But Jay keeps listening, and he tells us, "Everybody shut up for a second." So we do. And in that silence, the clicking changes. I don't mean it stops and something else starts. I mean you could literally hear it shift, like the clicking stretched into this wrong bark. Not like a dog, not like a coyote. It had this broken, unnatural edge to it. And the creepiest part was that it sounded like the clicking became the bark, like it was practicing it. And then it sounded closer, like way closer. Like it went from the tree line to the edge of the parking lot in a heartbeat. All four of us just panic at the exact same time. We bolt. Jay and I jump in his truck, Addie and Aston jump in theirs, and Jay tears out of the lot so fast the gravel pops. We're flying back toward the house, and when we pull into their driveway, I realize their car isn't behind us. My stomach drops. I tell Jay, "We can't leave them. Turn around. Now." We whip back and meet them coming out, and we pull up window to window like, "Go, go, go." But Addie and Aston aren't even talking normally. They're yelling, frantic, pale, like they just saw something that deleted every logical thought out of their brains. Addie's screaming, "Leave, right now, it's over there." And I don't know why I did it. I think my brain needed proof, but as we sped off, I looked back. It looked pale, kind of grayish, low to the ground, hunched over like it was folded wrong. And it turned its head slowly, like it knew I was looking. Its eyes looked white, not reflecting light, just white. Later, Addie told me she saw something else first, like a tall black shape, maybe 7 feet, drop down from a tree near the graveyard. And she swears it shifted, like it collapsed into the smaller, hunched thing I saw. I still get chills saying that out loud. So we all go inside, lock everything, try to act normal, but nobody is normal. We're shaky, talking too fast, checking windows, laughing in that stressed way people laugh when they're trying not to cry. Not long after, me, Jay, and his mom run to the store for a few things. Addie stays home with Aston. He was only going to be there another 10 or 15 minutes before heading out. The store trip is fine. For a second, I start to think, okay, maybe that was a freak animal sound and our brains spiraled. Then we pull out of the store parking lot, and my phone starts exploding with messages from Addie. She says Aston left a few minutes earlier, and as he was backing out of the driveway, something was standing there, at the edge of the drive, just staring straight at him. And when he pulled off, it scurried into the bushes. Then Addie says she started hearing tapping at her window. And listen, her room is on the 2nd floor, and there aren't any trees near her window. Nothing close enough to tap it. Not branches, not vines, nothing. She said the dogs outside went from losing their minds to dead silent like someone flipped a switch, like the whole world paused. Then a while later, the dogs started barking again, but for a few minutes there was just nothing. No crickets, No wind, no movement, just silence. When we finally got back, there was nothing. No sounds, no shapes, no weird barking, nothing at all. Like whatever it was had just stepped out of reality. That night, Addie and Jay ended up staying at my place because we had a competition the next morning. We piled into Jay's truck and started heading down the road, and their road is already known for being creepy. Even older people around there talk about how strange it feels, how folks have seen things. But the drive is totally normal. The whole time I'm thinking, maybe it's over. We turn onto my dirt road, and about halfway down, out of nowhere, something slams the side of Jay's truck. Not a little tap, a hit. The truck actually shakes, like something solid threw itself into it. We all scream. Jay hits the gas, and then right after that, as we pass a field, all three of us see it. A tall, dark figure running off into the field. Not walking, not stumbling, running, fast, and disappearing into the darkness like it melted into it. When we finally pull into my driveway, we jump out, hearts pounding, and we check the truck expecting a dent or a scratch or something. But there's nothing, no damage, except there was a small smear of blood on the back tire. Not a lot, just enough to make your stomach drop again, because it means whatever hit the truck wasn't imaginary. And ever since then, I'll be honest, we've been scared to be outside at night at either house. Even when nothing is happening, that feeling is still there. Like something knows where we are. Like it was curious. And like it hasn't fully decided it's done with us. Hey, so I want to tell you something that still gives me chills when I think about it. I grew up in Italy, but not the Italy people usually picture. No sunny coastlines or postcard cities. This was a quiet town tucked between mountains, with little forests that start almost right behind the last houses. And this happened about a decade ago, when I was around 12, middle school age. Back then, I had this close friend. His name was Matteo, and he lived in this big, slightly creaky house right where the mountain slope begins, and the woods kind of lean in close. On weekends or during school breaks, he'd invite me to sleep over, especially on nights when he was home alone. His mom sometimes worked overnight at the hospital, and honestly, being alone in that house at that age felt like inviting your imagination to run wild. One night, it was just the two of us. His mom had left for her night shift, and we did what we always did. Camped out downstairs with snacks and played video games for hours. I remember it wasn't Kirby that night, actually. We were glued to Mario Kart, getting louder and more competitive every race, because no adults were there to tell us to calm down. Eventually, we forced ourselves to go upstairs and sleep because we had this plan. Wake up early, sneak back down, and keep playing like it was our secret little world. And I was the kind of kid who popped awake like a switch had flipped. Around 6:15, I opened my eyes and the house was completely still. Dark, but with that faint blue light starting to press against the windows. I lay there for maybe 10 seconds before I couldn't take it anymore. I nudged Matteo and whispered, "Come on, let's go." To his credit, he didn't even complain. He sat up, half asleep but instantly excited, and we both crept out of the room like we were doing something forbidden. We hurried down the wooden stairs, those old stairs that groan no matter how gently you step, and they opened right into this wide living room that connected to a bunch of other rooms. The couch was right there, the TV across from it. We were already moving toward it, like autopilot. And then, from the guest room upstairs, the one that sort of looked out over the living room through its open doorway, I heard a voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was thin and rough, like someone waking up upset. But it was clear enough that my whole body went cold. It said, "Go away." I froze so hard I honestly think I stopped breathing. And I turned my head toward Mateo, because part of me was desperate for him to be normal, laughing, shrugging, saying I imagined it. But he was frozen too. His face had changed completely, like all the sleepy excitement had been ripped out of him in an instant. And then he bolted. He sprinted back toward the stairs like his life depended on it, and I'll never forget this. He tripped on the first steps, caught himself with his hands, and scrambled upward on all fours like a terrified animal. That image is burned into my brain. It took me a second, maybe two, before I could move again. Then I ran after him, heart hammering so loud I thought it might echo through the house. We slammed ourselves into his bedroom, locked the door, and just sat there, staring at each other, shaking, waiting, listening for footsteps, listening for anything. We stayed like that until his mom got home. And here's the part that still messes with me. But Mateo looked at me, totally serious, and said, "It didn't say go away. He said he heard, 'Come here.'" To this day, we tell that story sometimes when we're together late at night, like we're testing whether it still feels real. And every single time I go back to that house, I get that same prickly feeling in my neck when I walk past that guest room. And maybe this is me trying to make sense of it, but I can't help remembering something else about that house. The downstairs bedroom where his grandfather died years earlier. At the time, I immediately connected it in my head, like my brain wanted an explanation, any explanation. But the truth is, I still don't know what we heard. I just know we both heard something. And whatever it was, it didn't want the same thing from both of us. Okay, so let me start at the beginning, because the timeline matters. We bought this house in late 2019, and we moved in right at the start of 2020, after we finished fixing it up. At the time, it just felt like a normal place. Fresh paint, new routines, that whole new home buzz. But there was already a story attached to it. The previous owner's wife, her name was Marianne, passed away in what's now our master bedroom, maybe a year or so before we ever showed up. After that, her husband moved into a retirement home, and the house went up for sale. And I swear, for the first while, everything seemed fine. Like, totally fine. No weird noises, no bad vibes, nothing dramatic. It's just that over the years, especially once we'd really settled in, things started getting unsettling in a way I can't quite shrug off anymore. The biggest thing? The smells. Marianne was apparently a smoker, and she loved coffee. Not the quick kind, not instant packets. I mean real coffee, like freshly roasted, freshly ground, the kind that makes your kitchen smell like a cafe. And here's what's creepy. You can wake up at any hour and smell tobacco. Not smoke like someone just lit up, more like fresh tobacco. Like if someone opened a pouch of it right next to you. And just to be clear, nobody in this house smokes, at all. Then there's the coffee. Sometimes, usually around 2 or 3 in the morning, I'll wake up and the air smells like someone is standing at the counter brewing this perfect cup. It's rich and warm and unmistakable, like a barista just clocked in. And again, no coffee drinkers here. Tea? Sure. Coffee? Never. But it doesn't stop at smells, and that's the part that really gets me. One night, I got up around 2:10 a.m. because I was thirsty. I was in the kitchen, filling up a glass, half asleep, trying not to even look into the darker parts of the house. And the layout is kind of open. Kitchen, dining area, living room, they all connect, so you can see and hear a lot from one spot. While I'm standing there, I hear this drawer in the living room. And I don't mean a little creak. I mean I heard the distinct sound of a drawer sliding open, slowly, and loud enough that it made my stomach drop. And then I saw it, just pulling itself out like someone was calmly opening it. I froze with the glass still under the tap. Then I didn't even finish. I just set the cup down and practically ran back to my room. I'm not someone who panics easily, but when it comes to this kind of thing, that's my limit. I can deal with normal fears. I can't deal with the idea that something might be watching me move around my own house like it has the right to be there. And I know this might sound ridiculous, but I've played enough of those paranormal investigation games, phasmophobia and stuff like that, that my brain starts trying to label what it is. Without real equipment, without real research, it's probably not accurate. But if I had to guess, it feels like it could be something like a poltergeist, or a spirit, or maybe something that picks one person to mess with. Because there's been more. I've had my TV remote slide off my desk in broad daylight. Not fall, not tumble. More like it was nudged. Softly tossed. Like someone flicked it toward the doorway just to remind me, yeah, I'm still here. And another time, I woke up because something hit near my window. Like a light thump. And when I looked, a pair of shorts, my shorts, were on the floor by the window like they'd been thrown. I don't know if it was aimed at me or if it was meant to smack the window, but either way, it wasn't where I left it. And honestly, I'm telling you this because I needed to tell someone who won't immediately laugh it off. I've brought it up to friends and they act like I'm just paranoid, like I'm making a big deal out of nothing. But I know what I've smelled. I know what I've seen. And if I ever catch something real, like a weird light in a photo, or anything even close to solid proof, I'll share it. I don't want to feel like I'm alone in this anymore. So, let me tell you something that still gives me this weird, tight feeling in my chest when I think about it. I'm 25, and for a while I was living in this rented apartment not too far from my parents' place. It was one of those setups that actually felt like home. Me and a couple of office friends sharing the space, cooking together sometimes, complaining about work, all of that. But money got tight, and in May 2024, I had to move back in with my parents. The thing is, even after I moved out, that flat stayed in my head because of the stories. One of my roommates, my cousin, let's call him Arjun, was always the one who'd notice things. He'd casually bring up these little incidents like, "Bro, I heard someone walking around," or "I swear something was right behind me," or "Why did that door sound like it opened when nobody touched it?" Stuff like that. And we had this caretaker, Rafiq, early 30s, super serious about the paranormal. He wasn't dramatic exactly, just confident, like he'd seen enough to stop questioning it. He kept telling us, "Put up pictures of gods, pray every day, don't ignore it." He was fully convinced there was something not normal going on in that building. But me and my other roommate, Kunal, around 27, we were curious, sure, but we never actually felt anything. Not once. Even when something odd happened, like a thud at night or a weird creak, we'd laugh it off. Old building, pipes, wind, our own imagination. Easy. Until last night. So Kunal still lives there with Arjun. Same flat, same routine, same everything. And just after midnight, like around 1 a.m., Kunal hears these heavy footsteps above them. Not normal footsteps either, like slow, deliberate stomps. The problem is, the floor above them used to belong to the landlords, but the landlords moved to the UK ages ago. That floor has been empty for months and months. No one's supposed to be up there. Kunal tries to talk himself down at first. Maybe it's the building settling. Maybe it's water tanks. Maybe something fell. But then he steps out of his room to tell Arjun, and as he gets closer to the main door, he hears it. Giggling. Right outside the flat. Not inside the flat. Not from a phone. Not far away. Like it's coming from the staircase landing, just beyond their door. And I'm not talking about a random ha-ha that you can mistake for a TV or a neighbor. Kunal described it like playful giggling, close enough that it felt aimed at them. That's when both of them just lost it. They didn't do the brave movie thing where you open the door and look. They did the real life thing. They backed away, locked everything, and called the police because at that point, it had to be an intruder, right? Some creep in the staircase messing around, trying to scare them. The police arrived pretty quickly. They searched the house. They checked the staircase, the doors, the access points. Nothing. No sign of anyone. And what made it worse is this. The doors to the upper floor and the terrace were locked, and there was dust settled in a way that made it obvious no one had touched them recently. Like, if someone had been there, you'd see something. Footprints, smudges, anything. The police were calm about it. They basically told them, "No one's here. You probably misheard. It's late. You're stressed. Don't overthink it." And maybe that should have been the end of it. But here's the part that makes the whole building feel like it has layers. Let me explain the layout. The ground floor is gated, parking, and a small garden. From the parking area, there's a door that leads to a stairwell, and the stairs wrap around this old lift shaft. The stairs go up 3 levels, and they also go down. But below all of that, there's a basement. And the basement is one of those places everyone avoids without even discussing it. Like an unspoken rule. You don't go down there. You don't need to. You don't even want to. Every person who's visited that flat has said the same thing. The basement feels wrong. Not, ooh, spooky, fun wrong. More like, your body wants you to leave before your brain can explain why. And the worst part? When the police came, they didn't check the basement. Not because they refused, just because nobody thought of it in the moment. The focus was the stairwell, the empty floor above, the terrace access. It wasn't until after the police left, when Kunal and Arjun were on the phone with me, still shaken, that one of them suddenly went quiet and said, "Wait, they didn't go downstairs." And for a second, all 3 of us were just silent. Because yeah, the obvious thought is, if there was someone, that's where they'd hide. But then there's the other thought, the one you don't want to say out loud. What if the basement isn't just empty space? Now they're too scared to go down there alone. And honestly, I don't blame them. They missed the one window where it would have felt safe, like, okay, police are here, lights are on, let's just check and end this. Now it's back to just them, the stairwell, the quiet building, and that memory of giggling right outside the door at 1 a.m. And me? I'm sitting at my parents' house, telling you this, trying to be logical. But I'll be honest, if I were still living there, I don't know if I'd be laughing things off anymore. So, this happened about 7 years ago, and I've only really told it once. I think the only reason I can even talk about it now is because time put a little distance between me and that feeling, like your stomach is trying to crawl up into your throat. For context, I'm native, and I live on the res. Back in 2019, my grandpa, Eldon, got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. He hated doctors, like hated them. He went days without being able to eat or drink before he finally called us. and by then he had to be hospitalized. Once he was in the hospital, he asked my mom to move us into his house, not just to watch the place, but so we could keep it warm and lived in while he went back and forth for treatments. My grandma had already passed a few years earlier from lung cancer, so the house had this quietness to it, the kind that settles into corners. They had a big stretch of land too, left over from when they used to farm. And I need you to understand, weird things had happened around that property for years. My mom and her siblings had stories they'd tell in half jokes and half whispers. Stuff like seeing someone where there couldn't be someone, hearing things on nights when the wind wasn't even blowing. They swore there was an old, rusted stroller deep in the tree line that nobody ever brought home, like it belonged to something that didn't want it found again. Anyway, by the time this happened, we'd been living there a few months and had kind of settled in. One evening, my mom didn't feel like cooking, so she brought home fried chicken, one of those big, greasy takeout bags that makes the whole kitchen smell like salt and pepper. She invited my cousin over too, so it felt almost normal for a minute, like a regular family night. After we ate, I stepped outside onto the deck to get some air, and that's when I saw something dark on the ground near the bottom of the ramp. At first, I honestly thought it was like a shoe, or maybe a hoodie someone dropped. So I walked down the ramp to get a better look, and it was a dog's head, just sitting there. I remember my brain trying to correct what my eyes were seeing, like, no, that can't be right. But it was. A medium-sized dog, black fur, and the way it was placed, it didn't look like an animal dragged it there randomly. It looked left there. I ran back inside and told my mom, and at first, she tried to make it make sense. She said something like, "There's been a bear around, poor dog." And I was like, "No, Mom, it's a severed dog head." My oldest sibling, Maris, went out to check while me, my mom, and my cousin stood on the deck, holding on to each other with our eyes. Maris leaned in closer, then just slowly looked back at us and confirmed it. And then they said something that made my skin go cold all over. "The cut is too clean. A bear wouldn't do this. A bear would have torn it apart." Right when they said that, the wind started picking up. Not a gentle breeze either, more like the air suddenly had somewhere to be. My mom got nauseous and went back inside, like her body was trying to protect her before her mind caught up. My cousin, shaking, called her mom, my auntie, who's a medicine woman. And she came fast. When she arrived, she was dressed in her full ceremonial gear and carrying everything she needed. The second she stepped in, the whole mood of the house changed, like a stronger presence had entered, and whatever was there knew it. She started blessing us first, right there in the entryway. So we're all gathered in that entryway. Me, my mom, my siblings. Quiet, listening to my auntie pray. And then, something ran. I didn't see it, not clearly. It was more like the sensation of movement, fast and low, like when something darts past you and your whole body reacts before you even understand it. But we heard it. It tore toward the hallway, toward the bedrooms, and the wind chimes snapped to life, jingling hard, like something brushed it or shoved past it. That's how we knew exactly where it went. My younger siblings were right on the edge of crying. I could feel my own fear in my teeth, like my jaw wanted to chatter even though I was trying to stay still. It was that kind of fear where you don't want to turn your back on any doorway. My auntie didn't panic. She just kept going. She finished blessing the inside of the house, room by room, like she was sealing something shut. Then she went outside and blessed around the house and along the property line. She had someone dispose of the dog's head. She didn't let it stay there, not even for a second longer than it had to. And then she told us very clearly, "Tonight you sleep in the living room. Cover the windows. Don't leave anything open. And don't talk about it. Don't acknowledge it." Because whatever did that wanted attention. And it got it. So we dragged bedding into the living room, put blankets over windows, and tried to act like we weren't terrified. But there was no pretending, not really. The house felt like it was listening. I didn't sleep at all. I just kept movies playing quietly through the night, like noise could hold something back, like light from a TV could stand guard. In the morning we moved back to our rooms, though my mom hesitated like she didn't want to send us away from each other again. And after that, we barely talked about it. Not in detail, not out loud, like saying it would make it real again. There's one more detail that still makes me feel sick when I think about it. That dog's head, how it was positioned, was facing the basement window where Maris slept, like it was placed there on purpose, like it was meant for them. And the awful part is, Maris has always been like a magnet for strange things. Always. None of us have ever understood why. Out of my siblings, I'm the one who sees and hears the most. Always have. And growing up, a lot of the weirdness seemed tied to my dad, like he carried something with him and we got caught in the shadow of it. But that night at my Grandpa Eldon's house, that didn't feel like a shadow. That felt like something standing right outside the window, waiting for someone to look back. I've taught high school for about a decade now, and there are a handful of moments that stick with you. Little snapshots you can't quite file away. This is one of those. I'm not what you'd call a die-hard believer in the supernatural. I'm the kind of person who leans on logic, science, explanations you can test. But I'll be honest, the whole "what if there's more" question has always quietly fascinated me. I've watched the creepy videos, listened to scary stories, felt my stomach drop at the right jump scare. But nothing has ever really happened to me. Not personally. Until, well, this. Back then, I had a student in my special education class. Let's call her Maribel. Sweet kid, brilliant in her own way. She was on the autism spectrum and had a few other medical challenges, but she worked hard, and she had this very honest, straightforward way of experiencing the world. No pretending, no performance, just Maribel being Maribel. One afternoon, I finished a lesson and the room settled into that familiar, quiet hum. Papers shuffling, pencils tapping, kids trying to look busy. And then I noticed Maribel. She was crying. Not sniffling, crying. Big, shaking breaths like something had hit her all at once. I walked over right away, lowering my voice, keeping it gentle. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need to step outside?" Her classroom aide came over too, and together we guided her into the hallway so she wouldn't feel like everyone was staring. Out there, we asked again what was wrong, if she was hurt, if she was overwhelmed, if something had happened. Maribel just wiped her cheeks and shook her head. She wouldn't say a word. After a few minutes, she calmed down enough to go back inside. We didn't push it. Sometimes the best thing you can do is give a student space and let them come to you when they're ready. A little while later, I was at my desk when I heard Maribel's voice, clear, steady, and loud enough that half the room turned. "I can see angels." I swear the classroom went so quiet it felt unreal, like someone hit a mute button. You could hear the air conditioner click. I didn't want to embarrass her or make it a thing, so I kept my tone calm, almost casual. "Do you want to talk about that outside again?" She didn't even hesitate. "No, there are angels around the room." This time she wasn't panicked, just watery-eyed, like she was moved by something. And in that moment, I had a choice. Shut it down, redirect, treat it like a disruption, or meet her where she was. So I nodded, gently. "That sounds beautiful," I said. "Maybe they're here to keep us safe." Maribel's whole face softened. She gave the smallest smile, like I'd said the right thing. And then, like it was perfectly normal, she went back to her assignment. Later, I documented it the way we do, professionally, carefully, so the right support staff would know what had happened. A week or two after that, we had one of those team meetings. Me, the counselor, the diagnostician, an assistant principal, Maribel, and her grandmother. The kind of meeting where everyone's trying to make plans and talk through accommodations and supports. Very routine, very school. Everything was going smoothly until Maribel started crying again. This time she dropped her head onto the table, shoulders trembling. We all did the same thing at once, asking softly if she was okay, if she needed a break, if someone had said something that upset her. She shook her head no, still crying. Then she lifted her face just enough to speak, eyes downcast, voice quiet but certain. "There's an angel behind my teacher." And that was me. But here's the part I didn't expect. I didn't feel fear. I felt calm, like a warm weight settling in my chest, a stillness. Not excitement, not panic, just this steady, gentle peace I couldn't explain. And my mind immediately went to my grandmother. She'd passed not long before that meeting, my first real loss in the family. The kind of grief that doesn't always show up as tears, but as this dull ache you carry around like a stone in your pocket. I'd been trying to be fine, trying to keep teaching, trying to keep moving. And now this student was crying in a meeting, saying there was an angel behind me. Maribel's grandmother, bless her, didn't laugh or dismiss it. She leaned in with that calm, grandmotherly seriousness and asked, "What do you see, honey?" Maribel sniffed and said, "It's a bright light, really bright. No shape, just light." The diagnostician asked if it scared her. Maribel shook her head quickly. "No, it's pretty. It makes me happy." Her grandmother asked if she saw them often, and Maribel, still wiping her cheeks, said yes. She said she sees them a lot, in different places, that the lights move around rooms and sometimes stay behind people. Then she said something that still sits with me. She said, "Some people have them, and some people don't." I asked gently, "Is that what you saw the other day in the classroom?" Maribel nodded. "Yes, some kids had lights with them, some didn't." No drama, no theatrics, just her stating it the way a kid might tell you the sky is blue. The meeting eventually moved on, because that's what meetings do. But I didn't really come back down to earth for a while after. Even now, years later, I still don't know what I believe about it. I don't know if it was angels, or grief doing something strange to my brain, or her interpreting energy and emotion in a way I can't understand, or something else entirely. All I know is this. In that moment, when she said there was a bright light behind me, I felt a peace I've never been able to fully explain. And I still get a little sad when I remember her saying that some people don't have one. Because whether it was literal or symbolic, it hit something human in me. And I think about it more often than I ever expected to. Okay, so I need you to picture this. I'm out at my parents' little summer place, way out in the sticks. It's the kind of area where you can go a full day without seeing another person, and right now, it's still winter, so most of the nearby cottages aren't even usable. No one has their places heated. No one's around. At least, I'm pretty sure of that. I came out here because I'm trying to grind for my flight school finals, and I cannot focus back home. So, this all kicked off late last week. I think it was Thursday, late afternoon, somewhere around when the sun starts dipping. I've been trying to stay off my phone, so I'm not tracking the time like I normally would, but it had that almost evening feel. I step outside to grab some dry wood from the shed, just to keep the fire going through the night, and I hear a vehicle on the dirt road that runs past the property. And honestly, my first reaction was kind of excited, which sounds ridiculous now. I hadn't had company in days, so my brain immediately goes, "Oh, maybe it's someone I know." I start heading down toward the road, and before I even get close enough to see anything, the engine absolutely screams, like the driver slammed the gas as hard as they could. The tires kicked up gravel so loud it sounded like it was raining rocks. It wasn't a normal passing by sound. It was aggressive, like they wanted whoever was nearby to hear it. And I know how this sounds. Trust me. I sat there for a second with the wood in my arms thinking, why does this feel wrong? I couldn't even explain it, just this immediate, sour drop in my stomach. For a minute, I actually considered packing up and leaving right then. I've read enough stories about people casing remote properties or messing with isolated houses, and my brain just went there. But then I told myself I was being dramatic. It's winter. It's rural. People drive weird on dirt roads. I calmed down, went back inside, and tried to get back into study mode. Then the next night, Friday, I'm in bed on this loft area in the main room. There's a window up there that looks out over the front of the property. I can't see everything because of the trees in this little storage building, but I can see enough, especially the spot where you'd park. And there's this motion sensor light out there. I didn't put it in, my parents did. It's mounted on a tree, so if you pull up at night, you can actually see where you're going. Here's the thing, I don't have a car out here. I rode my motorcycle, and it's locked inside the storage shed. So there shouldn't be any reason for that light to come on. But I'm lying there watching some dumb TV, just trying to decompress, and suddenly that motion light turns on. And it stays on. For maybe 30 seconds, it's bright, and then it clicks off. Then almost immediately, click, back on. Off. On. Off. On. Over and over again. Not once, not twice. For like, I'm not exaggerating, 10, maybe 15 minutes straight. And I'm just frozen. Like my brain is doing that thing where it's trying to solve the problem logically, while my body is going, nope, nope, nope. I remember sitting up, just staring at the window like if I stared hard enough, I'd see what it was. But the trees made everything into shadows, and the storage building blocked the lower part, so all I could really see was that light flipping on and off like something was moving around just out of view. Eventually, I convinced myself it had to be wildlife. That was the only explanation my brain would allow, because the other explanation, someone out there pacing in the dark, felt too insane to even entertain. Saturday was quiet, uneventful, almost enough that I started to feel silly about the whole thing. And then tonight happened. And this is the part that still has my hands feeling weird even talking about it. I stepped outside to pee, because yeah, the cottage setup is rustic, and the bathroom situation isn't exactly convenient. So I go out near the edge of the trees like I always do. It's dark, it's cold, it's quiet in that heavy winter way. And then I hear footsteps. Like actual footsteps. Not a scrape, not a rustle, not a branch snapping once. Footsteps. At first, I tried to tell myself it was an animal. Deer, maybe. Something moving through leaves or snow. But the rhythm was wrong. It wasn't walking speed. It wasn't running speed. It was like, this is the only way I can describe it. Like something was stomping fast in short bursts. A rapid, unnatural thud, 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 and then silence for a couple seconds. And then again, thud, 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 thud. Pause. Again. Like something was doing it on purpose. My entire body went cold. I didn't even finish what I went out there to do. I just pulled my pants up and bolted back inside like my life depended on it. I slammed the door, locked it, checked the other doors, locked those too, closed the blinds, turned off lights, The full, I'm suddenly living in a thriller movie routine. And I know how it looks, okay? I'm aware. I'm out here alone, studying, barely sleeping, probably making myself jumpy. I keep telling myself that. I keep trying to be rational. But the problem is, I know what I heard. I'm sitting here right now with my heart still pounding, and I've got, something to hold on to, because it makes me feel less helpless. I keep listening for it to come back. I keep hearing little sounds outside that could be nothing, but after that stomping rhythm, every tiny noise feels like it's aimed directly at my nerves. And the worst part is the isolation. The service out here is awful. I've had hours where my phone basically becomes a brick. So it's like, even if I wanted to talk to someone, I'm not guaranteed I can. I tried calling my parents earlier. I'm going to try again. But I'm also telling you right now, when the sun comes up, I'm leaving. I'm not stepping outside again until it's fully light, and the second it is, I'm gone. Because maybe it's an animal. Maybe it's wind. Maybe it's my brain spiraling because I'm alone and stressed. But something about those footsteps, those weird, deliberate bursts, makes my skin crawl in a way I can't shake. So tell me I'm being paranoid. Seriously, tell me there's a simple explanation. I want that more than anything right now. Hey, so I've had these strange little experiences ever since I was a kid. Nothing dramatic enough for me to be like, okay, something is definitely wrong, but enough to keep a little knot of paranoia living in my chest. And I'm going to tell you everything the way it happened, even if some of it doesn't connect. Because honestly, it all feels connected when you're the one living it. For as long as I can remember, I've been able to lucid dream. Like, I'm in the dream, and I know I'm dreaming. I can wake up and recall details, faces, rooms, bits of conversation, like they were real places I visited. But here's the weird part. Even though I'm aware, I usually can't control what's happening. It's not like those fun lucid dreaming stories where people fly or change the setting. For me, it's more like I'm conscious in a moving car, but I'm not driving. And my dreams loop. A lot. So if something horrible is about to happen, like I'm headed down a hallway I know leads to something I don't want to see, I'll try to make a different choice. I'll turn left instead of right. I'll run instead of freeze. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it doesn't. The dream just rearranges itself and finds another way to corner me. And I know people say you can't feel pain in dreams. I can. Not always, but enough times that it stuck with me. I've felt the sting of getting scratched, the heavy ache of being grabbed too hard, the sharp panic of pressure in my chest. It's not movie pain either, it's body pain. Like my nerves didn't get the memo that none of it was real. Then there was the sleep paralysis. That part used to be the worst. It started when I was really young, just waking up and not being able to move. But it didn't stay simple. It would happen when I was in the most miserable positions too, like my face pressed into a pillow or trapped under a thick comforter. And I'd be stuck there, unable to shift even an inch. My brain would be awake, my lungs would be begging, and I'd start panicking because I couldn't tell if I was actually suffocating or just feeling like I was. And then it evolved. When I was around 16, maybe 17, I started hearing voices during it. Not clear conversations, more like murmurs that felt close, like someone was in the room, leaning in. And the worst thing? I'd feel cold air on the back of my neck. like breathing, like something was right behind me, just patiently exhaling. I never opened my eyes, not once. I didn't want to give it the satisfaction. That's what it felt like if I looked, it would become more real. For a while, it happened almost every night. I started dreading bedtime. I could feel it coming too, this heavy slide, like my body would sink before my mind did, and I'd think, no, not again. And still, I'd get pulled under. Eventually, I learned how to break out of it. I'd wiggle my toes first, just the tiniest movement I could fight for. I'd force little sounds out, like a low grunt. Sometimes I'd whisper prayers in my head when I couldn't speak, bargaining with anything listening. Please, please let me move. And I'm not even saying that in a dramatic way. It really felt spiritual sometimes, like I wasn't just fighting my own body, like I was fighting for permission to come back. That phase of my life was also when I was at my lowest emotionally, depressed in that quiet, heavy way where you're functioning, but you're not really living. And I can't ignore that connection, even if I don't fully understand it. These days, the sleep paralysis only comes back when I'm exhausted, like running on fumes, or when I'm deeply stressed. Sometimes I'll put on a soft video or a calm voice in the background when I fall asleep, and weirdly, that seems to help, like it keeps me anchored. I should probably tell you this too, because it matters. I grew up in a poor, chaotic, emotionally abusive home. Not the kind where bruises were on me, but I saw it happen to my siblings. I heard things you can't unhear. And my part was mostly getting yelled at, degraded, blamed, made to feel like a burden for existing. So I learned to disappear. I stayed quiet. I stayed out of the way. I spent a lot of my childhood alone because being alone felt safer than being noticed. And the basics weren't stable either. Power would get shut off sometimes. The water too. You'd wake up and it was just another day of pretending it was normal. So yeah, maybe that shaped my brain. Maybe my sleep got wired wrong. Maybe fear became my default setting. I can admit that. But even with all that, there are things that happen later, as an adult, that still make my stomach drop when I think about them. Because I don't just mean nightmares. I mean hearing things. And I've never seen something fully appear in front of me. Not like a shadow person standing in the doorway or anything. But I have caught movement out of the corner of my eye, and I'll be honest, I don't investigate. I don't do the let's see what that was thing. If I get the sense something is there, I avoid looking directly at it, like looking might invite it closer. A couple years ago, there was this moment that still gets me. I had just gotten out of the shower. My hair was dripping, I was reaching for a towel, and I heard my daughter, my little girl, say, "Mommy?" right outside the bathroom door. Clear as day. And without thinking, I answered, "Hold on, baby." The second the words left my mouth, I felt this cold realization wash over me. Because my daughter, she doesn't stand politely outside the bathroom door. She bursts in like she owns the place. She's loud. She's impatient. She's her. But nothing happened. No footsteps. No door handle turning. Just silence. So I opened the door. No one was there. I walked straight to her room with my heart beating in my throat, and she was asleep. Fully asleep. Knocked out in the way only a kid can be, like the world could fall apart and they'd still be dreaming. I just stood there staring at her for a long minute, trying to convince myself I must have imagined it. But I heard it. Then another time, this one was worse because it felt so intimate. I was in bed, drifting off, and I heard my husband, well, my partner, Darren, say, "Hey Ray," right next to my ear. Not from across the room, not muffled through a wall, right next to me, like someone leaning over my side of the bed. I sat up so fast my whole body went hot. I looked around, confused, and I expected to see him standing there, maybe needing something, maybe joking around. But the bedroom was empty. I got up and walked out, and he was in the hallway, near the kitchen, getting water, nowhere near me. And when I told him what I heard, he swore he hadn't said a word. And he looked genuinely freaked out too, which somehow made it worse. There's one more piece that always lingers in the back of my mind. Before I got married, I lived with my sister for a while. I told her about the weird stuff, my dreams, the paralysis, the voices, all of it, because I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. And here's the part that makes me feel guilty even now. When I moved out, it stopped for her. Just stopped. Like it left with me. So yeah, that's why I'm cautious. That's why I don't go chasing shadows. That's why when I hear something call my name in the wrong voice, my first instinct isn't curiosity. It's this quiet, instinctual thought. Don't answer. Hey. So, this is one of those stories I don't tell lightly. But if you're listening right now and you've ever felt like fear was living in your bones, then maybe you'll understand why I'm sharing it. When I was little, like really little, I used to sleepwalk and sleep talk all the time. In my family, it was treated like, oh, that's just Jessa being Jessa. But honestly, it was still unsettling. And looking back, I don't think it was ever just some harmless, quirky thing. My childhood home wasn't a warm place, not even close. My sisters and I were abused by our mother. Our parents divorced, and she had this way of making everything about her, like she needed control over every breath in the room. She was also into what she called white magic. Sometimes she'd read our palms at the kitchen table like it was a normal little hobby. But it didn't feel normal to me. Not then. Not ever. And here's the thing. I'd already had moments before all that where I'd seen things I couldn't explain. Little flashes of the paranormal, more than once. So I knew what off felt like. I knew when something didn't belong. Part of me still believes her messing around with that stuff drew more darkness toward us. Like it opened a door and never bothered closing it. And then, something worse happened in that house. I was raped there. After that, the system got involved and I was removed. At first I was placed with my sister, but it wasn't safe there either. It was just different pain, same helplessness. Eventually, I ended up living with my aunt until I left for college. And I'm telling you, my aunt's house should have been peace. She was stable. She was kind. She loved God. But the moment I moved in, the weirdness got stronger. My sleepwalking ramped up again, but it wasn't like before. It was purposeful, like I was being guided. One night, I woke up with only these tiny little snapshots in my memory, like 2 seconds of film spliced into a blackout. Later, my aunt told me what happened. I had gotten up in the middle of the night, walked into the kitchen, and picked 3 flowers from a little vase she kept near the sink. Then I walked down the hallway and put 1 flower on the floor of each of my baby cousins' rooms, right near their cribs, like I was placing them there on purpose. Then I came back to the living room, took the 3rd flower, and this part still makes my stomach flip. I sprinkled little decorative stones, those glassy pebbles from a bowl, across the living room carpet like I was scattering a trail. Then I tossed the stem in the trash and went back to bed, all while asleep. And the freakiest part? I remembered just enough to know I was doing something, but I couldn't stop. It's hard to explain, but it felt like being trapped inside your own body. Like your mind is underwater watching your hands move on their own. Around that same time, I started having night terrors too. One of them, I swear it felt real enough to bruise my soul. I woke up in my room and I saw this priest standing near my bed, like he was performing some kind of cleansing. The room was shaking, like the walls were trembling, and I could feel it in my teeth. But there was no one there. And I woke up for real screaming, drenched in sweat. Another one came back over and over. I'd be stuck inside this apartment and I couldn't get out. I'd pull on the door, I'd pound on it, I'd twist the handle until my hands hurt. But something evil was on the other side. Not just scary, but sinister. Like it was waiting for me to open it so it could finally touch me. But the dreams kept getting worse. And then came that night. I dreamed I was walking home in the dark, streetlights humming, the air cold and heavy. And I had this strong feeling, almost like a voice inside me saying, "Don't turn around. Whatever you do, don't turn around." But I heard footsteps behind me, and I remember thinking, I'm almost home. I'm right there. If I turn around and something's wrong, I can just run inside. So I turned, and I was face to face with this dark figure, my height, my shape, like a shadow cut into the outline of me. And it spoke, in my voice. It said, "You should have listened to yourself." And it lunged, like it jumped straight onto me. I woke up in absolute terror, but since nightmares had become my normal, I tried to shake it off like, okay, just another one. Breathe, you're fine. I got up to use the bathroom. My aunt's house had this setup where the bathroom was connected to my bedroom, just one wall separating the two. And my bed back then? Loud, squeaky. You could hear it if you even shifted your weight. So I'm sitting on the toilet, trying to calm down, and I start hearing the bed squeak, over and over. Not like someone rolling over, not like a spring settling, like something was moving on it, back and forth, or sitting down and standing up, repeatedly, calmly, like it had all the time in the world. And I froze, because I knew something important. If I made noise and it stopped instantly, that meant whatever was doing it was responding to me. That meant it was aware. So I stayed completely still and listened for what felt like forever, probably 3 minutes. The squeaking didn't stop. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I'd throw up. And I kept thinking, please let it be my imagination. Please let it be the house settling. But it wasn't. Finally, I gathered every ounce of courage I had and opened the bathroom door. The second the door moved, silence. Instantly. Like someone held their breath. And in that moment, something in me just knew. Whatever was in that room hadn't been in that house before I arrived. It was like my fear had made room for it. Like the more afraid I got, the more permission I gave it to become real. And it felt stronger. Now here's what matters. It was only me and my aunt living there. And it was a long ranch-style house. Our bedrooms were on opposite ends. No way it was her. No way. So I ran. I ran down that hallway like my life depended on it, and I found my aunt. And the second I saw her, I just broke. I told her what happened, and she didn't hesitate, not even a second. My aunt is a God-fearing woman in the truest sense. Not performative, not loud, just grounded, certain. She came with me to my room, and she prayed like she was stepping onto a battlefield. And when I say she fought, I mean it. She prayed with authority, like she knew exactly who she belonged to. Like fear wasn't allowed to speak louder than faith. And I'm getting emotional even saying this, but it was like the air changed. like something heavy lifted off the house. That night, I slept like a baby. And after that, the sleepwalking stopped. The night terrors stopped. It was like someone shut the door and locked it. And what I took from all of it is this: God can work with a trembling heart, but fear can't be the one driving. My prayers before weren't landing because I was still terrified, still half believing the darkness had the final say. So if you're dealing with something like this, whether it's nightmares or spiritual oppression, or just feeling like you're not safe even in your own mind, I want you to hear me. You are not alone. And faith doesn't have to be perfect to be real. Mine was shaky. Mine was small. But God still met me. He still sent help. He still made a way. And that's why I believe, with my whole chest, that when you choose trust over fear, you'll see the difference. You really will. Okay, so it's been a long time since I've had sleep paralysis. Like, I'd almost convinced myself I was past that phase of my life. But this time actually rattled me. So, quick layout because it matters. My bathroom is basically split into two sections. There's a front part with the sink and mirror, and then there's a second little room behind another door where the toilet and shower are. 2 doors, 2 separate light switches. You'll see why that's important. A few nights ago, my roommate, Jules, goes, "I swear I just saw someone run down the hallway." And I'm like, okay, maybe you're tired. Maybe you're just jumpy. But still, I got up and checked. I looked down the hall, checked the living room, even peeked into the other rooms. Nothing. Nobody. No weird open door, no footsteps, no anything. So I brushed it off, told myself it was imagination plus late-night paranoia. Later that same night, though, I'm laying in bed, trying to fall asleep, and I hear this soft humming. Not like someone singing a song you recognize, more like this gentle, melodic hum that feels too close, like it's in the room with me. And then I feel hands. 2 hands, gripping my leg and my thigh, firm, like someone really meant it. And right after that, it's like a heavy weight just pours over my whole body, pinning me down. The humming keeps going, totally calm, like whoever, or whatever, was doing it wasn't stressed at all. Meanwhile, I'm internally freaking out, trying to force myself to move, trying to wake up. And when I finally snap out of it, I'm drenched in sweat, heart racing, like I'd just survived something. Then 2 nights later, Jules gets all quiet, kind of pale, and goes, "Do you hear that? Coming from the kitchen?" And I'm listening and I'm like, no, I don't hear anything. But I still got up and checked because I'm not trying to be that person who ignores it and then regrets it later. Nothing. Again, empty kitchen. No cabinets open. No weird shadows. No sound. So that night, after finding nothing, I go to bed. And I wake up in the middle of the night needing to use the bathroom. I'm half asleep, stumbling, like my brain is still buffering. I shuffle into the bathroom and shut the first door behind me. I flick the first light switch. Nothing. The light doesn't come on. And instantly, I'm wide awake because that bathroom gets dark. The kind of dark that feels thick. I get this sudden panic, like my body knew something before my mind caught up. So I reach my hand through toward the second part of the bathroom, feeling for the other switch. I flip it, expecting at least that one to work. Still no light. But the vent fan kicks on. Like, the switch did something, just not what it was supposed to do. And I remember backing up because that tiny detail, fan on, light off, made my skin go cold. Then the door to the second section of the bathroom shuts, right in front of me. And I'm telling you, I didn't touch it. I didn't bump it. It just swings and closes like someone pulled it. So now I'm standing there in the pitch dark, stuck between 2 doors, one behind me, one in front of me, and that panic turns into this full-body wave of dread, like an invisible pressure pushing down from the ceiling. And I'm trying to wake myself up because something in me is screaming, "This is a dream. This is sleep paralysis. Get out, get out, get out." And then, snap. I'm back in bed, eyes open, except I can't move. And that's the part that always makes your stomach drop, right? You're awake, but your body refuses to listen. But what scared me even more than not being able to move, what was shocking, was the pair of eyes staring at me from the other side of that blanket. Like something was right there at the side of my bed, leaning over, either tall and bent down, or short enough that it could just hover there and look straight at me. Big brown eyes, just watching, unblinking. And I could make out hair, this messy, weird haircut. The top looked curly, but the sides were sticking out in spiky little tufts, like it had tried to style it and gave up halfway. Honestly, it reminded me of that chaotic, cartoonish, mushroom hair but feral vibe. Unkempt. Wrong. And I'm trapped. I can't move. I can't speak. I'm just staring back at it while it stares at me like it's studying me. And then, when I finally break out of the paralysis, when I can finally move again, it's still there. Like it didn't fade. It didn't vanish the second I regained control. It was still watching me. I swear I launched myself out of bed. I threw the blanket, basically threw my whole body off the mattress, and I sat there trying to breathe like a normal person again. I couldn't sleep for a long time after that. The intensity of it, the realness of it. My body was convinced something had been in the room with me. And then, here's the part that made me feel sick yesterday. I got home from work, went into the bathroom, and I flipped on the first light. It turned on normally. So I'm like, okay, maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the bulb was loose. Whatever. Then I hit the second switch. The light stayed off, but the fan turned on. Same exact thing. And I immediately called out to Jules like, "Hey, bathroom light might be out." They come over, flip the switch, and the light turns on. Perfectly fine. They just stare at me like I'm messing with them, like I'm doing a prank. But I'm standing there feeling my face go hot because I know what happened. I know what I saw. And the timing of it all, hallway shadow, humming, hands on my leg, the door closing, the eyes. That's not just a string of cute little coincidences. It feels personal. Like it's not just in the apartment, it's with me. And I hate that I can't even fully describe what it looked like. The only clear things I got were that bizarre haircut and those huge brown eyes. Last night I actually prayed. Like for real. I asked God to protect me and get whatever this is away from me. I even said, half out of fear, half out of anger, like, "Please, get rid of it. Kick it out. Don't let it stay." But here's the messed up part. The apartment feels heavier now. Like the air is thicker. Like the vibe is bruised. And I can't tell if I'm just freaked out and noticing everything more, or if I actually made it mad. I don't know. All I know is I don't like how it feels. Like something noticed me noticing it. Like something is waiting for me to fall asleep again. Welcome back, everyone, to the Paranormal M channel. I absolutely love what I do, sitting here and sharing my paranormal experiences from all over the world with you. Reading your comments makes me so happy, because knowing these stories help you relax and drift off to sleep means a lot to me. Thank you so much for always supporting the channel. Wishing you a peaceful, restful night's sleep, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now, without further ado, let's jump into today's paranormal experiences. Hey, so this is one of those things I still don't quite know what to do with, you know? I'm 24 now, and dreaming about people who've passed has kind of been normal for me, weirdly. But 2022 took it to a different level. That year, I lost 2 relatives within about 5 months, and I'd barely been to any funerals in my life before that. Suddenly, I'm going to not 1, but 2, back to back, and everything in my head felt louder at night. The first one was in early spring of 2022. My great-uncle, technically by marriage, passed really suddenly. A heart attack. He was Jewish, so everything moved fast, like immediately. I remember my mom coming home after going to see him that evening, and she looked emptied out, like the color had been rinsed from her face. She didn't say much at first, just sat down like her whole body weighed extra. And then she told me that his wife and daughter had been praying over him in Hebrew until the funeral home came. That night, I had this dream that was so vivid it felt like someone placed it in my hands. I'm back in school, like middle school, and it's lunchtime outside. I can hear kids laughing, sneakers squeaking on pavement, all of that. And in the middle of the yard, there's this tall wooden door, like a heavy church door, just standing there by itself. No walls, no building, just a door. And in the dream, I don't even hesitate. I walk up and open it. On the other side is this bright, busy room, packed with older people I've never met. There are long tables set up like a celebration, platters of food, warm bread, things that smelled like cinnamon and onions and something sweet. And there are candles lit everywhere, mostly blue and white. And I remember thinking, this looks like something from my relatives' gatherings, even though I'm not Jewish myself. I grew up around some of the foods and traditions through extended family, but still, being in it like that felt surreal. Everyone's dressed up, black suits, black dresses, talking like they're at a big family event, smiling, not mourning, not crying, just alive with conversation. And then I notice one person who does look at me. I'll call him Uncle Leon. He's the only one not in black. He's wearing tan slacks, a patterned button-down, and a kippah on his head. And the strange part is, he doesn't look like how he looked near the end. He looks like the version of him from before. Healthier, lighter, like his eyes have more time in them. He smiles like he's been expecting me, and he walks right over. And I'm standing there going, Uncle Leon, is that you? What is this place? He laughs, soft, almost amused, and he just pulls me into this hug. Not creepy, not cold, not dream weird, just familiar, human. And he goes, it's a party. You can stay if you want. And this is the part that still makes me pause even now, because in the dream, I said no. Like, I didn't panic. I didn't run. I just felt this clear, calm boundary rise up in me, and I said, I can't stay, but I hope you enjoy it. Please, enjoy the party. He didn't look offended. He didn't look sad. He nodded like he already knew what I was going to choose. And he said, that's all right. Go have fun out there. Then I woke up. And I remember lying in bed thinking, why did that feel like a goodbye that wasn't heavy? Like a farewell wrapped in kindness instead of grief. The morning we found out, I was numb. I'd literally just woken up, and it was like my body didn't have enough energy to hold the news. So I went back upstairs and lay down, thinking I'd just rest for a little while. Now, I've dealt with sleep paralysis before. I know what it feels like. I know how I usually get myself out of it. Little tricks, little routines. But this time was different. I woke up, but I didn't. I could see my room. I could see my bed. I could see myself lying there. And I had that heavy, pinned feeling, like my body was locked. And then I realized there were two presences beside my bed. Two women. One of them felt instantly familiar, like the air changed in a way my chest recognized before my mind did. The other one was unfamiliar, but strong, protective. Like she wasn't there to scare me, she was there to guard. My great-aunt was there, and she was talking in Creole, but not to me. She was speaking to the woman beside her. The woman beside her was dressed entirely in white, with white hair, and she carried herself like someone who didn't need to raise her voice to be obeyed. My great-aunt stepped closer to me. In this moment, I expected her to say something, anything, but she didn't. She just leaned down and hugged me. And I need you to understand, I have never felt a hug like that. Not in real life, not in any dream. It wasn't just arms around me. It was like being wrapped in pure love. Like she poured everything she wanted me to know straight into that one embrace. I'm okay. I'm not alone. I love you. I love all of you. And when she pulled back, the warmth lingered for a second, like heat after you step out of sunlight. Then the woman in white said, very clearly in Creole, "Nous devons aller." We have to go. My great-aunt stepped back to stand beside her, and she lifted her hand and waved goodbye, soft, gentle, like she didn't want to startle me. And then I woke up for real, like snap, back inside my body, heartbeat loud, mouth dry. I ran downstairs and told my family everything, still shaking. And the reaction I got wasn't disbelief. It was shock, yes, but the kind that comes from recognition. Because they told me the woman in white sounded exactly like my great-aunt's great-grandmother, someone I'd never met, but they described her in a way that matched what I felt. And then, this is the part that made my stomach flip. They went and found a photo. And in it, my great-aunt was wearing the exact outfit I'd seen, a bright red top and blue jeans, the same way it looked in that moment by my bed. So yeah, I don't tell these stories to convince anyone of anything. I'm not even sure what I believe all the way. I just know what I experienced and how it felt. One goodbye was a door to a party I wasn't meant to stay at. And the other goodbye was a hug so warm it felt like love refusing to let the last moment be lonely. Okay, I know people talk about this kind of thing all the time, but I've been carrying this around for a while, and I just want to say it out loud, because it still sits in my chest like a little stone. Back in high school, when things at home felt like they could explode if I breathed wrong, I had this place I'd escape to. It was this park not too far from my apartment, maybe a 25-minute walk if I didn't rush. And the best part was the water. There were two small waterfalls tucked in there, and I'd sit nearby and let the sound drown everything else out. Sometimes I'd scribble in a notebook. Other times I'd just sit there and try to be quiet inside my own head. The day this happened, it had rained the night before. You know how the world looks after rain? Like every leaf is freshly painted. Everything was so green it almost looked fake. And I remember feeling this weird pull, like the park was calling me. It was a warm summer afternoon, bright enough to make you squint, and I decided I was going to go sit by the falls again, maybe even let the mist hit my face. I was dealing with family stuff at the time, heavy, personal, exhausting. The park was the only place where my body actually unclenched. Normally I'd take this route that went up a steep incline, but that day I chose a different entrance, the one with the long sidewalk and the wooden footpath. And nothing was obviously wrong at first. But if I'm being honest, looking back, it felt like the air changed when I took that route. Like there was this faint pressure, almost like walking into a room where you can tell someone's been arguing, even though nobody's there. I ignored it and kept going. There were two open areas along the trail. one for bird watching and another little dog run. I passed the bird watching clearing and saw a couple deer, does, grazing near the edge. Their heads kept lifting like they were listening for something, swiveling a little too often. But they weren't bolting, not panicked, just alert. Then I kept walking into the next wooded stretch, and that's when it hit me. I was totally alone. No voices, no footsteps, no distant laughter, not even that usual park noise you don't notice until it's gone. I heard the creek and drifted toward it without thinking. I'd done it 1,000 times, just wandering off the path to look at the water. I crouched down, watching it move over the rocks, and for a moment, it felt like my mind went blank in that weird way it does when you're stressed and your brain just needs quiet. Then I got this sudden urge like, okay, move, time to go. No reason, no thought, just this internal push. So I stood up and headed back toward the path. And that's when I saw it. 2 young trees were bent toward each other, twisted together so tightly they formed this clean arch, like a doorway. Not messy, not snapped branches or random wind damage. It looked intentional, like someone had braided them together. I stopped dead, because I couldn't figure out how it could have happened in the couple minutes I'd been watching the creek. And I remember feeling 2 emotions at once, my stomach sinking with unease, and this weird little spark of curiosity, like my body wanted to lean in even while my instincts were whispering, don't. I stood there staring, thinking, did someone do this? Were they here and I didn't notice? But there was no movement, no sound, no anything. Just those trees locked together like they'd been waiting. And here's the part that makes me feel ridiculous even saying it. I walked through, but everything looked normal. I kept going, got to the waterfall, sat there for a while, tried to breathe out everything I'd been holding in. The water did what it always did, made me feel calmer, like I could exist again. And when I finally decided to leave, I took the same route back. Same path, same direction, same everything. Except when I got to the spot with the arch, the trees were normal, not slightly shifted, not loosely tangled, not bent. Just 2 young trees standing apart like they always had, with no sign they'd ever been twisted together at all. No broken bark, no fresh scrapes, nothing that suggested they'd been forced into that shape. It was like the doorway had never existed. I stood there for a long time, just staring, trying to replay the moment in my head and convince myself I'd imagined it. But I know what I saw. I know how my body felt. That mix of dread and curiosity doesn't come from nowhere, and the thing I can't shake is what my emotional state was that day. I was upset, really upset, depressed, weighed down, raw, like my energy was leaking out of me. So sometimes I wonder, was it just my brain under stress? Or did something else pick up on me? Like I walked in there with all that heavy emotion and it was enough to, I don't know, fuel something. Enough to create a moment, a doorway, a temporary opening, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying I have an answer. I just know that for a few minutes, on a bright summer day after the rain, the park didn't feel like a park. It felt like I stepped near something that noticed me back. So, I've been carrying this around for most of my life, and I don't always know how to say it out loud without sounding a little unhinged. But here goes. Have you ever had a dream or a sudden gut drop feeling where something in you just knows something is about to happen, and then it does? That's been my experience since I was a kid. And I'm not talking about the vague, I'm nervous so something might go wrong kind of worry, though people love to tell me that's all it is. Anxiety, overthinking, catastrophizing. And honestly, I get it. If you sit around waiting for disaster, you'll start seeing shadows everywhere. But with me, it's different. It comes like a wave. It's not a thought I'm spinning up. It's this heavy, sudden certainty that lands in my body. And when it hits, something tends to happen. Not always to me directly. Sometimes it's someone I love. Like just last week, I was sitting on the couch with my partner, Eli, and out of nowhere, I got that feeling. That cold, sinking uh-oh that makes the room feel slightly too quiet. I remember saying, I don't know why, but something feels wrong. I'd barely finished the sentence when my phone rang. It was my sister, Marisol, telling me she'd pulled over because her car was coughing and stalling, and there was this sharp, burning smell, like plastic or wiring. She was shaken, and I could hear it in her voice. Another time, I was at work. Nothing dramatic, just a normal shift, normal conversations, normal background noise. Then the feeling hit so hard I had to grip the edge of the counter. 10 minutes later, I got a call. My younger sister, Tessa, hadn't come home. She was missing. It turned into hours of panic, calling around, checking places, the kind of fear that makes your skin feel too tight. She was found later and she was okay, but that doesn't erase how real that moment was. And then there are the dreams. Ever since I was little, like 8 years old, maybe earlier, I've had this recurring nightmare. Same setting every time, same weird details. It's almost like stepping onto a stage where the props never change. In the dream, I'm inside this familiar house. Not exactly my house, but it feels like one I've known forever. The lighting is dim in that dull, yellowed way, like a hallway at night. There are people around, faces I recognize in the dream even if I can't fully place them when I wake up. And every single time I ask to use the bathroom, someone always tells me the same thing. It's downstairs, basement, first door on the right. And I never want to go. It's like my whole body knows that basement is wrong. The air down there feels heavier, like it's packed with something you shouldn't breathe in. And every time I have that nightmare, something horrible happens soon after, as if the dream is a warning siren my brain can't turn off. The last time I had it, I woke up to my mother crying so hard she could barely speak. She told me my Aunt Nadine, had been attacked. She didn't survive. I remember sitting up in bed, still half stuck in that dream world, and feeling like the nightmare had followed me into the room. Like it had been waiting for me to wake up and confirm it. But when I woke up, I was confused. We lived in a pretty ordinary area. Suburbs, stores, side streets. Not exactly middle of nowhere territory. Then I found out something I never would have guessed. My sister, Tessa, the one who later went missing, had been secretly involved with Jonah. She was underage at the time. He was in his mid-20s. I didn't know. I couldn't have known. It was like finding out you've been living in a room with a hidden door the whole time. And here's the part that still makes my skin prickle. They were trying to leave. They were driving out toward the border, far from anywhere familiar. And his car broke down. In the desert. Just like my dream. We don't talk anymore. I don't even have a way of contacting him now, and honestly, I don't want one. But that doesn't stop my mind from replaying it. How I saw that scene before I had any reason to imagine it. So this is where I'm stuck. Because I've told people about these things, and a lot of the time I get the same reaction. That I'm dramatic. That I'm reading into coincidences. That I'm crazy. Or I just have anxiety and I'm attaching meaning to random events. Even my family doesn't really validate it. And that's complicated, because they're spiritual in their own way. They're involved in shamanic practices, and when I've tried to talk about this, they've told me, gently but firmly, that I don't have the gift. that if someone is meant for that path, it's chosen in a different way, and what I'm describing isn't it. And maybe they're right. But I can't shake what I've lived through. I can't pretend I haven't had these moments, these dreams, these feelings that line up a little too perfectly with real life in ways I can't explain away. I've had other experiences too, more spirit adjacent, I guess you could say. Strange encounters that don't fit neatly into a logical box. But that's probably a whole other conversation. Right now, I just want to know I'm not alone. So I'm asking, genuinely, has anything like this ever happened to you? So, there's this old bar back in my hometown. Real small, real rural. It sits just far enough outside of town that you've got fields on the drive over, but not so far that it feels isolated. The place has this worn-in, old Western feel. Dark wood, scuffed floors. The kind of bar that looks like it's been listening to people's stories for 100 years. And forever, people have whispered that it's haunted. Not in a horror movie way, though. More like, oh yeah, the place has company. And then they laugh and sip their drink like it's no big deal. Folks claim they've seen someone pass through the hallway, or heard a chair scrape when no one's sitting there, or felt a presence like somebody standing just behind them. I always figured people were exaggerating. You know how it goes. One good story turns into 10 better ones over the years. But a couple weekends ago, I stopped in with a few friends, Mason, Jules, and Tessa, around late night, maybe closer to 1 in the morning. We were heading home from a local get-together and didn't want the night to end yet, so we made this spontaneous little detour. When we walked in, the bar was basically empty. No crowd, no music blasting, nothing rowdy. Just that soft hum of a neon beer sign and the low clink of glass now and then. Behind the counter was the bartender, an older woman named Marlene with silver hair pulled back in a clip. The kind of person who greets you like she's known you your whole life. Warm smile, calm eyes. She didn't seem surprised to see us at all, just poured like it was any other night. And honestly, it didn't feel creepy. It felt peaceful, like the building could finally exhale. We're sitting there talking, laughing quietly, telling stories from the night, and at some point I glance down this hallway off to the side. At the end of it is the back dining room, the part they only open earlier in the day when they do lunch specials. At night, it's usually dark back there, closed off, kind of forgotten. But this time, I saw someone. Just a figure standing in that back room, near the doorway. Not close enough to see a face clearly, just the shape of a person, still and upright, like they were waiting or watching. Here's the weird part. I didn't panic. I didn't even flinch. No icy rush, no spike of fear, nothing. It was like my brain filed it under, interesting, instead of run. I kept listening to my friends talk, nodding along, but my eyes kept drifting back like I was checking a clock. And the figure didn't do anything dramatic. No sudden movement, no rush toward the hallway. It just shifted. Like it took a small step sideways, and then it wasn't in my line of sight anymore. And that was it. I remember thinking, maybe it's a worker cleaning up back there. The simplest explanation. So I let it go. I didn't say a word. I didn't want to be the person who ruins the vibe with, did anyone else see that? We stayed a while, long enough for the warmth of a few drinks to settle in. Not sure how many, maybe 2, maybe 3. Time gets a little soft around the edges in places like that. Eventually, we started getting ready to leave. That's when I noticed Marlene dragging a vacuum out from behind the bar. Not the casual, end of shift kind of thing. More like she was about to do the real closing. She headed toward the exact back room where I'd seen that figure. And something clicked in my head. I waited until my friends were busy pulling on jackets and joking around. Then I leaned in and asked her, as casually as I could, "Hey, do you have someone helping you close tonight?" "Oh no," she said. "It's just me." I sent my other helper home early. Slow night. My stomach dropped. Not in a sick way, just in that sudden, quiet realization. Because we'd been there long enough that there was no way someone could have been in that back dining room unless they'd walked right past us to leave. And they definitely didn't. So I just sat there for a second, holding my smile in place, acting normal, while my brain went, "Oh, okay, so that wasn't an employee." And still, it didn't feel threatening. If anything, it felt like I'd accidentally wandered into someone else's routine. Like that figure wasn't trying to scare anyone. It was just there. Like it belonged. Like it was checking in on a familiar place the way some people still drive by their old neighborhood years after moving away. I thought about telling my friends. I really did. But I could already hear Mason laughing and going, "Sure you did." And I just didn't have the energy to defend myself in the middle of the night. So I kept it to myself. But later, driving home with the dark road stretching out in front of us, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how normal it felt. About how calm the whole moment was. And I kept thinking, I should have asked Marlene what she thought. Because something tells me if I'd said, "Hey, I saw someone back there," she wouldn't have looked shocked. She probably would have nodded like, "Yeah, that's Earl," or "That's the one who likes the back room," like it was just another regular. And honestly, that's the part that sticks with me the most. Not that I saw a ghost, but that for a second, it felt like I was sharing space with someone who never really left, and didn't seem to mind that I was there either. So this happened last night, and I'm still kind of wrecked this morning. Not only because it was scary, because it really was in the moment, but because of what it means. Because now I feel like I know my grandma is still around, and I truly believe she's met her great-great-granddaughter. Let me back up a little. My great-grandma, her name was Marisol, at least that's what I always called her in my heart, passed away about 8 years ago. And she wasn't just a relative. She was the only grandparent figure who ever really showed up for me and my brother. The only one who made us feel wanted, safe, loved. When she died, it felt like she took pieces of us with her. Like the world got quieter in this specific, permanent way. Now I've got a baby girl. She's just a little over 6 months old, and it's honestly eaten at me that she'll never meet Marisol. Like, I'll be holding my daughter and suddenly it hits me all over again. You would have adored her. I've always been kind of spiritually sensitive. I don't even try to make it sound mystical. It's just my normal. I've had strange experiences since I was a kid. I can usually tell when a space has something in it, when someone is near, when the air changes. But aside from one night years ago, I never felt my grandma again. And I never said this out loud before, but I started wondering if maybe she was just gone. Like maybe wherever she went, she didn't come back. Okay, so last night. It was late, around 11, maybe a little after. My partner, the baby, and I were all in bed. Our bed faces this big window, like almost as tall as a door, with blinds covering it. Everything was calm, soft, the kind of quiet that makes you whisper without thinking. And I suddenly realized I'd never told my partner about the one time Marisol did visit me years ago. So I start telling the story, kind of casually at first, but then I get more serious. And I remember saying something like, that was the only time I ever felt her, the only time she ever made herself known. After that, nothing. I'm mid-sentence, looking right at the blinds as I'm talking. And then it happens. The blinds, right in front of us, lift and pull to the side. Not a tiny twitch, not a little sway, like someone actually picked them up and moved them over, a good 6 inches, like a hand had grabbed them. My partner and I both watched it. Then the blinds let go. And they didn't just fall still. They swung back and forth, hard, like a pendulum, like they'd been released with force. It kept going for almost a full minute, long enough for my brain to go, no, 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 this isn't real. Long enough for my body to go cold. We didn't speak. We just sat there, frozen, listening to that plastic clicking softly as it swayed, waiting for it to stop, waiting for it to make sense. When it finally did stop, it was like my mind snapped back into survival mode. I started scanning for explanations. Air vent? A draft? A passing car shaking something? An uneven window? Anything. But there was nothing. No fan, no breeze, no reason. And then this wave hit me. This feeling that didn't belong to the room, but belonged to memory. Familiar, warm, almost stern, honestly, like, don't talk about me like I'm not here. I just broke. I started crying so hard I couldn't breathe right, and I turned to my partner and whispered, "That wasn't a coincidence, right?" And then, this is the part that really undid me. About 20 minutes later, my daughter was on the floor playing, just doing baby things, rolling a little, grabbing at her toy, making those soft little sounds. And then she stops. She looks toward the corner near the window, the exact area where the blinds had moved, and her whole face changes. Her eyes brighten like she's seeing someone she recognizes, someone she likes. She starts babbling, happy babbling, and then she reaches out with both arms and does this little wave grab motion she does when she wants to be picked up. But she wasn't reaching for me. She was reaching for that corner, a corner that looked empty to anyone else. But I knew it wasn't empty. I knew. I could feel it in my bones, the way you can feel someone standing too close behind you, the way you can feel love that doesn't need language. I think my grandma was there. I think she was standing in that corner, just looking at her, meeting her, letting her know she's safe. And here's the thing. After that, nothing else happened. No more noises, no weird activity. The room didn't feel busy or heavy. It felt settled. Like she came in, made her point, made her introduction, and then stepped back. We've had strange things happen in this house before, but never in our bedroom. We've always treated this space like a boundary, like, this is the baby's safe place. Nothing comes in here, nothing negative, just peace, just love, just God. And apparently, her grandma. It's such a strange thing to say, feeling connected to someone you lost so long ago. But that's exactly what it feels like now. Connected. Like a thread got tied back together. I feel her presence again. Not constantly, not like a spooky movie. Just like a quiet protection. Like someone watching from the edge of the room with a soft expression, making sure we're okay. And I never thought I'd say this, but I genuinely hope one day, when my daughter is old enough to talk, she tells me she sees someone. I hope she says it casually, like it's normal, like, yeah, Grandma's here. And I hope she feels what I felt growing up. That kind of love that doesn't disappear, even when the person does. Okay, so I was tiny when this happened. Like, I couldn't have been older than 6, maybe 7 at the absolute most. I used to spend whole afternoons in our backyard, just doing kid stuff, making up games, poking at bugs, chasing my own imagination around. And there was this concrete wall at the back of the yard that separated our place from my neighbor's property, which was actually my great uncle's. The wall wasn't totally intact either. One section was crumbled enough that you could slip through if you really wanted to. But on the other side, it wasn't like a nice little yard. It was this long stretch of weeds and tall grass that went on forever. At least, it felt like forever when you're little. I'd seen litter back there, and I was convinced there were rats, so I stayed on my side. I'd play near the broken part of the wall all the time, but I didn't cross it. That day, my mom was inside talking to my grandparents in the kitchen. I couldn't see them from where I was, but they could see me through the window, and they were close enough that if I yelled, they'd hear it. So I'm out there, messing around near the broken section like always, when this girl suddenly shows up on the other side, like she'd been there the whole time and I just hadn't noticed, except, no. I'm telling you, she wasn't there, and then she was. She looked a little older than me, not by a lot, but enough that it felt like she was the one in charge of the situation, you know? And she was really friendly, like instantly friendly. I can still picture what she was wearing, which is part of why I've never been able to convince myself it was a dream or something. She had these bright blue denim overalls that were kind of too big for her, like the straps sat funny and the legs bunched up. And she was wearing a straw hat, the kind with a simple brim, like something you'd see in a picture book. I remember thinking she looked like a little farm kid from an old illustration. Her skin was really pale. She had freckles across her nose, and her hair was straight, sort of shoulder length, maybe a little longer, but not super long. We talked and played for a bit. I honestly can't remember what the game even was, but I remember the feeling of it, like it was easy, like we'd known each other already. She told me her name was Elowen. And here's where it got weird. She wouldn't come over to my side, not even a step. She stayed on her side of the broken wall the whole time, but she kept trying to get me to come over there with her. Not in a mean way, more like persistent. Like she was sure I'd eventually say yes. And I kept saying no because 1, rats, 2, trash, 3, I was absolutely positive I wasn't allowed to go back there. I remember telling her that. Like, I can't. My mom said I can't. There's gross stuff over there. And she did this thing where she looked disappointed, but also kind of irritated? Not angry, not scary, just like she thought I was being ridiculous. She kept insisting there was nothing back there. No rats, no trash, nothing to be afraid of. And the way she said it made me feel weirdly self-conscious, like I was being a baby for not trusting her. I didn't like that feeling at all. So I said, fine, maybe I could go, but I had to ask my mom first. I remember thinking that would make her happy. Like, it was a compromise. Like, see, I'm trying. I ran inside as fast as I could and told my mom, like kids do. I was like, there's a girl outside by the wall and she wants to play. Her name is Elowen and she's wearing blue overalls and a straw hat. My mom's face changed immediately. My mom started asking questions in this polite way, like she was humoring me. And I remember getting offended, like genuinely offended, because I wasn't pretending. I wasn't playing. So I insisted. I told her, no, she's real. She's right there. Come meet her. My mom hesitated, but she came with me, and I bolted outside first, because in my mind I was thinking, see, she's still going to be there. I'm going to prove it. The whole trip, from backyard to kitchen and back, couldn't have taken more than a minute. But when I got there, she was gone. Just gone. I remember my stomach dropping, like that sudden cold, embarrassing swoop, and I started calling out her name, thinking maybe she was hiding behind a bush or crouching down in the grass, being shy now that a grown-up was there. And my mom started talking the way adults talk when they're addressing an imaginary friend, like cheerful and polite but aimed at air. "Hi there," she said, like she could totally see this girl. "So, you're Elowen?" And I remember feeling my face get hot, because now it looked like I was the one playing pretend, like I dragged her outside for nothing. I started looking around harder, and I kept drifting closer to the broken wall, because I was thinking, she has to be right there. She has to. But my mom's voice sharpened. She got impatient. She didn't want me going near the opening, and definitely not through it, which just made me more frustrated, because I already knew I wasn't allowed. That wasn't the point. The point was, I wasn't lying. We went back inside, and I kept expecting Elowen to come back, like the next day, or the day after, or at some point when I was outside again. But she never did. And what made it worse, what honestly made it stick in my chest for years, was that my mom didn't believe me. I could tell she didn't. Not really. She thought I'd imagined her, or made her up, or maybe seen something and turned it into a story. After that, my mom started acting like Elowen was already there, like she was playing along. Like, "Oh, is your friend out there today?" in this sweet, encouraging voice. And I know she meant well. I do. But as a kid, it felt like I was being handed an imaginary friend I didn't ask for. Like she was trying to smooth over something I wasn't ready to let go of. Because to me, that girl had been real. Eventually, I kind of went along with it, I guess. I was little, and little kids adapt. But the imaginary friend version of her wasn't the same at all. In my head, she turned into this big, gentle butterfly. Basically a cute cartoon creature I liked at the time, with big, friendly eyes and soft wings. That imaginary butterfly was comforting and safe, and I always knew it wasn't real. The girl by the wall was different. The girl by the wall felt like someone I actually met. And the older I got, the more I noticed how people reacted when I told the story. I always told it as this thing about my mom not believing me. Like, this is the first time I remember feeling that kind of frustration. That kind of, why won't you trust me? But people didn't focus on that. They'd get quiet. They'd look unsettled. They'd say things like, "That's creepy," or "That's not normal," or "Are you sure?" And over the years, yeah, I started to feel a little spooked too. Maybe because everyone else was. Maybe because the details never faded. Maybe because I can still see the blue overalls and the straw hat like it's a snapshot. I don't have some dramatic explanation for it. I just know what I remember. I know she was there. And I know what it felt like to be telling the truth, and to have the only adult who could have backed me up look at me like I was pretending. Hey, so I'm gonna tell you something that's been sitting heavy on my chest for a couple of days now, and I can't quite shake it. I'm 38, and I live with my wife, Marina, in this house we bought back in 2013. It's one of those older places, built in the mid-50s, solid bones, tons of character. We've raised our 3 kids here, made it ours over time. Paint, small remodels, all that normal life stuff. And honestly, this house has always felt warm, safe, like it's been good to us. But I should mention this one detail, because it might matter, or it might be totally irrelevant, and my brain is just trying to connect dots. About a year after we moved in, one of the neighbors casually mentioned that the original owner, supposedly a really kind guy, actually passed away here. Heart attack, out on the back patio. And yeah, that's sad, but it never made the house feel creepy or off. No weird cold spots, no bad energy, nothing like that. Just a piece of history. Anyway, 2 nights ago, like middle of the night, around 2:40 a.m., I'm half asleep and I hear Marina get out of bed. She pads down the hall and goes into the kitchen where her laptop setup is. I'm thinking she couldn't sleep, maybe just wanted to read or scroll or whatever. I stayed in bed, kind of drifting. And then, the second I hear her sit down in the chair, I get hit with this sudden, awful feeling. Not anxiety, not, oh no, I forgot something. It was dread, sharp and absolute, like my body decided there was danger in the room before my mind even caught up. I kept my eyes closed because I didn't want to look. I don't even know why. It was just instinct, like, don't open them. I started praying, not performatively, more like reflex, just reaching for something steady. And the moment I did, I saw this blinding white flash behind my closed eyelids, like someone set off a camera flash inside my head. And right after that, it felt like a massive rush, an energetic whoosh swept over me. My whole body went heavy, pinned. And it wasn't just, can't move. It felt like something pressed down through my chest, like my insides were being squeezed. The best way I can describe it is, it felt like my soul was being crushed. Dramatic, I know, but that's what it felt like. I've had sleep paralysis before, twice, years ago, so I'm not unfamiliar with the concept. But those times, I was awake, aware of the room, just stuck. This was different. This time, I felt trapped in this half-dream state where I could hear the world normally, but I couldn't get my body to respond. I didn't hear footsteps or whispers or anything obvious. It was more like the air itself was wrong. I tried to call out to Marina. I tried so hard. In my head, I'm yelling her name. Marina, Marina, but nothing comes out. And I don't know if it was 10 seconds or a full minute, but it felt long. Long enough to start panicking in that helpless way where you're thinking, if something is here and I can't move, what am I supposed to do? Then finally, I snapped fully awake, like surfacing. I rolled over fast and clicked on my bedside lamp, and the room looked normal, totally normal. But the feeling didn't vanish instantly. It lingered, like the aftermath of a storm, like the pressure had left, but the atmosphere hadn't reset yet. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I was shaking. Not a little rattled, I mean shaking. I just sat there, breathing, trying to convince myself I was safe. Eventually, I calmed down enough to sleep again, and the next day, I kept going back and forth in my head. Do I even talk about this? Part of me felt silly, like, okay, bodies do weird things. Half asleep, stress, whatever. So I told myself it was probably just a freak sleep event and tried to drop it. And then this morning happened. I'm driving the kids to school, just a normal morning, and my oldest, Lena, she's 11, says to her younger sister, totally casually, that she had a night terror the night before. She says she woke up frozen with fear, like she couldn't move, and she could hear voices. But the part that made my stomach flip is what she said next. She said the voices didn't sound like strangers. She said it sounded like us, me, Marina, and the other kids, like the whole family talking, but wrong, like overlapping, like everyone speaking together as one voice, and she couldn't understand what it was saying. And I'm sitting there at the wheel trying to keep my face neutral, because the last thing I want is to scare her, so I just didn't push. I made some gentle noise like, oh wow, that sounds scary, and moved on. But inside, I felt cold. Because she didn't know anything about what happened to me. I never said a word to anyone. So now I'm stuck in this place where I'm trying to stay rational, because that's who I am. I'm not someone who jumps to ghosts or demons or anything like that. I'm open-minded, but I'm practical. And yet, I can't ignore how intensely real it felt, and I really can't ignore the timing with what Lena said. So yeah, that's where I'm at. What do you think it could have been? Just a coincidence? Two weird sleep-related things back to back? Stress in the house? Something environmental? Or something else? And if there is anything I can do to stop it from happening again, something grounded, something practical, even something spiritual if you think that matters, I'd honestly like to hear it. Because whatever that was, I don't want to feel it again. And I definitely don't want my kids feeling anything like that either. So, I need to tell you about the house we moved into. Because if I don't say it out loud, it still doesn't feel real. About 9 years ago, my wife Lena and I found this old Victorian, built in the 1890s. Tall ceilings, carved woodwork, that kind of, they don't make them like this anymore, charm. It was the kind of place you walk through and instantly start picturing holidays, coffee on the porch, a future. We had no clue it was active. The first few months were normal, nothing dramatic, just us settling in, learning the quirks of an old house, the creaks, the drafts, the way you have to pull one door just right or it sticks. And then, somewhere around month 4 or 5, the house started doing this thing where it felt like it was trying to get our attention without fully stepping into view. At first, it was little stuff. Cabinets in the kitchen, just barely swinging open, like someone had nudged them and walked away. Upstairs, footsteps in the hallway when both of us were downstairs. Bedroom doors that we knew were shut when we went to sleep, standing wide open in the morning like a silent announcement. I was here. And our bathroom. This is the part I still can't make logical. There's an old clawfoot tub with one of those vintage shower setups. 3 separate knobs. You don't accidentally turn it on. You have to commit. But more than once, we'd wake up and the shower would be running full blast. Then things started getting physical. Stuff getting knocked off shelves. One time in the master bedroom, another in the kitchen, another time in this back room down in the basement. Not sliding, not falling, like it had been flicked off with intention. That's when you stop saying, "Huh, weird," and start saying, "Okay, what is going on?" After that, the house got bolder. We'd hear knocking, hard knocks, coming from the living room when nobody was there. A heavy thud from the basement, like something dropping, but when you go down, there's nothing. Lights flickering for no reason, even after we changed bulbs. And the disappearing things. That's the kind of stuff that messes with your head. Like, you put your keys on the little table by the stairs. You know you did. And then they're gone for days. You tear the place apart. You question your sanity. You blame the cat. You blame each other. Then a week later, there they are again. Right where you left them. Like the house is returning them after it's done playing. But the creepiest shift, the moment it stopped being strange and started being personal, was the footsteps on the stairs. Not the gentle old house creaks. These were heavy, angry, like someone stomping up from the bottom step, each footfall louder than the last. And then stopping a few steps from the top, like whoever it was standing there, just out of sight, deciding whether to come the rest of the way. And the thing is, it wasn't just me. My friend Caleb experienced it alone. Lena experienced it alone. I experienced it alone. Same pattern, same weight, same stopping point. Then it started copying us, mimicking. One afternoon I was walking through the kitchen, passing the little hallway that leads to the stairs, and I heard Caleb's voice, right by my ear, like he was standing inches from me, clear as day. I actually turned my head, expecting to see him. He wasn't there. I texted him immediately. "Are you home?" He wrote back from work, sent a picture of his desk like, "Dude, I'm not even close." Another time, Lena and I were in the house together and heard that same voice from another room, followed by a hard thud, like something hit the floor. And then, this is where it flipped. It copied me. He says, I heard footsteps outside the door, and then I heard you sniffling. But I wasn't near the bathroom. I was sitting still, watching the movie, not moving, not messing around. A few days later, it happened again. Caleb was alone in the living room while Lena and I were out in the garage, and he swears he heard me sneeze, loud, close, coming from upstairs, from my office. I didn't sneeze. I wasn't even inside. It was like something was practicing our voices, testing them. When we bought the place, nobody warned us. The realtor didn't say a word, but the house came with this old storage box, like a history of the home kind of thing. Deeds, old photos, receipts from repairs, even newspaper clippings. And mixed into it were details about deaths tied to the property. 3 of them, confirmed in the paperwork. One person had a heart attack in the garage, another died after a long illness, and another, this one hit me hard, drowned out in Lake Michigan. And then there was this single sheet, like someone had typed it up on an ancient machine, listing reported hauntings from tenants back in the 1980s. They wrote about seeing a man near the fireplace or standing by a front window. They described him in detail. Tall, older, thinning hair but long in the back, dressed like he belonged to another century, suit, and this long tailcoat. I'm telling you. Lena read that and went dead quiet, because she'd already seen him. She said she'd caught glimpses of a tall man on the stairs more than once. Sometimes he'd just be there, and she'd have to walk past him like you do when you're trying to act calm around something you don't understand. Sometimes, this part makes my skin crawl. She said he'd move like he realized he'd been caught, and then he'd disappear through these old swinging butler doors that lead toward the entryway. And before she ever saw that paper, she described him exactly the same way. The suit, the shape, the hair. Most of the time, Lena handled it better than I did. She'd shrug off little things. Old houses are weird, she'd say, like that explained a cabinet opening itself. But there was one night she couldn't shrug off. She woke up around 3 in the morning and saw someone peering over the doorway from the hallway into our room, hunched over, watching her, smiling. She told me she couldn't tell if it was a woman or maybe a child, smaller, bent forward in a way that didn't look right. But what she remembers most were the eyes. She said they looked pale, almost yellow-white, too bright, like they were reflecting light that wasn't there. She got so scared she literally climbed on top of me to wake me up, not shook my shoulder, not called my name. She jumped onto me like she needed to get off the bed, off the floor, away from whatever was in that doorway. And the last thing, the most recent thing, that still messes with my sense of reality, happened a couple months ago. It was late, after 2 a.m., and Lena and I were on the couch in the living room. Down in the basement, I have this little compressor for my airbrush set up. It kicks on every so often to rebuild pressure, and it's loud enough that you can hear it through the vents. Lena goes, "Can you please unplug that? I can't sleep with it turning on." And instantly, this feeling hit me. That gut drop feeling where you don't even have a reason, but something in you says, "Don't go down there right now." I told her I'd do it in the morning. She laughed and said it would take 30 seconds. She'd go upstairs and let our cat out of the room he'd been trapped in, and we'd meet back in the kitchen. So I did it. I practically jogged down, yanked the plug, and ran back up. We met in the kitchen at almost the exact same moment, less than a minute total. We go back into the living room, and the ceiling fan lights had been loosened, not removed, not shattered. And here's why that still keeps me up sometimes. The TV was still on. The clock was still on. Other lights in the house still worked. Nothing else was disturbed. Just those bulbs, intentionally turned off, while we were both out of the room for less than 60 seconds. Like the house wanted us to know, I can do things while you're gone. I can do things fast. And maybe the strangest part is, this isn't even the first time something like this has followed us. Before this place, Lena and I had a little apartment in Pennsylvania and had experiences there too. Footsteps, odd sounds, that sense of being watched. I also used to work at this old, haunted attraction not far from here, and once did a ghost tour where they used one of those spirit box setups, and it spit out my name. Twice. My name isn't common. Hearing it through that crackling radio noise made my stomach turn. So I don't know if it's the house, or if it's us, but I do know this. When you live somewhere long enough where the walls answer back, you stop asking if something is there. You start wondering what it wants. And you start listening a lot harder than you ever wanted to. So, I've got to tell you what's been going on, because it's starting to feel like the kind of thing you can't just shrug off anymore. For a little background, my day job is in a funeral home, and I know how that sounds already, but honestly, most of the weird stuff there is almost routine. A door that swings when it shouldn't. Something that vanishes and turns up later in the most obvious place. A patch of foggy air that lingers in one corner like it forgot to leave. Strange, sure, but usually it doesn't feel bad, you know? It's more like, oh, that again. But a couple of months back, a few of us started noticing something else. Just a dark shape, like a shadow, catching the edge of your vision in different parts of the building. And every time it happened, it left this little aftertaste of unease. Not terror, not panic, just that crawling, something's off feeling that sticks to your skin. Anyway, around the same time, my family moved into a new place. It's a duplex apartment. Nothing fancy, but it's cozy. It's me, Renee, my partner Matt, my daughter Ivy, she's 10, 2 indoor cats, Juniper and Beetle, and our outdoor dog, Scout. We'd barely been there 6 or 7 weeks and everything felt totally normal. Until the whispering started. And when I say whispering, I mean the kind that feels like it's right in your ear. Close enough that you almost flinch from the breath of it. This has happened to me a couple of times in the past, years ago. Back then, it was always a woman's voice, soft, calming, like someone speaking to you when you're sick or scared. I could never remember the words afterward, but I always woke up with this warm, protected feeling, like I'd been wrapped in a blanket from the inside out. I mentioned it once to a couple of people who are really tuned into spiritual stuff, and they told me, very matter-of-factly, that sounds like a protector, like someone watching over you. So when it happened again recently, in those early morning hours right before sunrise, the first time, I wasn't even afraid. That first time was just like before. Same gentle female voice. I woke up, didn't open my eyes, and just listened. I couldn't tell you what she said if you held a flashlight to my face and demanded it, but I remember the feeling. Peaceful, steady, like someone was reminding me, you're okay, you're safe. But then the second time happened, and that time, it sounded exactly like Ivy. I heard her voice, clear as day, right by my ear. Mom? In that exact way kids say it when they're about to ask a question. It jolted me awake. I sat up, looked around. No one. Matt was already gone for his early shift. The bedroom was quiet, the door closed, everything still. So I went down the hall to Ivy's room, expecting to find her standing there or sitting up in bed. She was out cold, fully asleep, not even stirring. That's when the nice, comforting guardian feeling started to wobble. A few days after that, Matt told me something that gave me goosebumps immediately. He said he'd woken up in the dark to a voice, his own voice, saying either mine or 9. He couldn't tell which. He said it wasn't like he'd spoken in his sleep. It was like he heard it, external, like someone else used his voice as a sound. He sat up, confused, scanned the room, and there was nothing. just me sleeping. Then I had this other moment, middle of the day, when I was home alone because I'd been off work recovering from pneumonia. I was in bed, drifting in and out, door closed, and I heard 3 knocks. Not random tapping, not a settling noise. 3 deliberate knocks, like someone at a front door. Knock, knock, knock. But then, this is the part that still makes my stomach twist. This morning, before sunrise again, Scout started barking outside. That sharp, urgent bark she uses when she thinks something's wrong. I got up to calm her. It was still dark, but the sky had that faint early light, enough to see without turning lamps on. I got her settled, and I was walking back down the hall toward the bedroom when I heard Matt's voice from behind the closed bedroom door. "I got him." It was playful, but there was something underneath it. Something that didn't match him, like a grin you can't see in the dark. I stopped so fast I swear my whole body locked, because while I was standing there, I could also hear Matt lightly snoring. Steady, unbroken. He hadn't moved. He hadn't paused. Nothing. And right after I heard the voice, both cats hissed, like full, angry, spitting hisses, and they bolted away from the bedroom door like something had rushed at them from the other side. Juniper and Beetle never do that. They live for that door. They usually camp there like little furry burglars, waiting for someone to open it so they can sneak in and nap on the bed. Matt and I finally sat down and talked about all of it. He told me he'd heard knocking too, coming from the kitchen late last night. 3 knocks. And here's the thing. I hadn't told him about the knocks I heard earlier in the day. Not a word. So when he said 3, my heart kind of dropped. We even checked the security cameras, because of course that's what you do when you're trying to be rational. But nothing showed up. And all of it has been happening on the far side of the apartment, away from the wall that connects to the other unit. So we're pretty sure it's not a neighbor or someone thumping around next door. And then there's me. I've been feeling drained, like someone unplugged me, mentally and physically. Even when I sleep a solid 8 hours, by mid-afternoon I'm barely upright. I keep telling myself it's left over from being sick. Pneumonia will knock you around, I know that. But this exhaustion feels sticky, like it doesn't lift. And yesterday at work, something happened that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. I was talking with coworkers when I felt pressure on my left shoulder blade. Not pain, pressure. Like a hand, but not a normal hand. It felt rough, scratchy, almost scaled? That sounds ridiculous, I know, but it's the closest description I've got. I kept brushing at my cardigan, thinking maybe a hair or a loose thread was poking through my shirt. I kept trying to find the source of it, even slipped my hand down the back of my shirt like, okay, what is this? And there was nothing. No tag, no seam, no pin, no hair. Nothing. It happened over and over until I got so frustrated I could have cried. And then it just stopped. That night I got home, ate dinner, and passed out on the couch like someone hit an off switch. Later, Matt woke me and guided me to bed. And while we were settling in, he casually goes, "Oh, and something weird happened earlier." He told me he'd been packing our lunches and he felt a hand press into his left shoulder blade. Same spot. Same kind of pressure. He said he thought it was me messing with him, so he turned around ready to call me out. I wasn't there. He checked the living room and I was still asleep on the couch. He just stood there in the kitchen staring at nothing, trying to make it make sense. And one more detail. One of my coworkers, a woman who is very spiritually tuned in, mentioned this past week that she saw something perched on her own shoulder in the bathroom mirror while she was washing her hands. She said it like she was trying not to scare herself as she said it. So now I'm sitting here, connecting all these dots I don't want to connect. And I keep thinking, what if it isn't just one thing? What if it's multiple presences, multiple energies? One that comforts and one that imitates, one that watches and one that pushes. I don't know. I just know it's getting stranger, and it's starting to feel less like weird little apartment noises and more like something learning us, like something practicing our voices in the dark right before the sun comes up. So, I don't tell this story to freak you out. I tell it because it still sits in my chest the same way it did back then, like a cold hand pressed flat against your ribs. When I was younger, me and a few friends, let's call them Nate, Owen, and Jess, used to go poking around this abandoned, winterized house out near Mason, New Hampshire. And when I say out near, I mean out there. Dirt roads, trees packed in tight, and no neighbors close enough to hear you yell if you needed help. It was the kind of place where the world gets quiet in a way that feels unnatural. The house itself was oddly intact for being empty. We found old boxes and paperwork that made it look like nobody had really lived there since around 2006 or so, like time just stopped and left everything behind. Most rooms were trashed from people rummaging through. Bedrooms turned inside out, the living room littered with junk and broken things. But the sunroom, that was different. On one wall, there was this messy, half-faded writing, like somebody tried to copy Latin without really knowing it. And there was a symbol on the floor, something like a star drawn inside a circle. Not neat, not dramatic like in movies. More like someone scribbled it in a hurry and didn't care who saw it later. There were also these painted snakes winding along part of a wall. And I remember thinking, why snakes? Why here? We went there more than once because it was private. Nobody bothered us. We could mess around, explore, talk, laugh, whatever. But here's the thing. Even when nothing happened, the place always felt sour. Like the air had a mood. You know how some rooms feel warm, even if they're cold? This was the opposite. It felt like you weren't welcome, but you were being tolerated. And then, one day we decided to go into the basement. The basement stairs were narrow and steep, and the smell down there was sharp. Dust, metal, something chemical. Our phone flashlights were doing that jittery thing, cutting little slices out of the dark. And the second we got to the bottom, we saw it. Heavy chains fixed up near the ceiling area, like restraints. The kind you'd strap around wrists, arms raised up. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't maybe. It was exactly what it looked like. And on the floor beneath it there was a stain, old, dark brown, spread in an uneven patch. I remember my brain trying to argue with itself. It's rust. It's old paint. It's something. Anything but what your gut says. Nearby there was a workbench, and it was loaded with stuff. Bottles that looked like chemical containers, strange little glasses, tools, random pieces that didn't belong together. Like someone had been experimenting, or cleaning, or preparing. I don't even know. I just know my skin went tight. And then, this is the part I still struggle to explain without sounding crazy. I got this sudden, clean, violent certainty in my head. Like a thought that wasn't mine. Get out. Now. It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a bad vibe. It was like someone shoved the words straight into my mind, hard enough to make my stomach drop. So I didn't try to convince anyone. I didn't make a speech. I just told the guys, I'm going outside. I've got a really bad feeling. and I moved fast, up those stairs, two at a time. At the top, there's this little gap where the basement door and the front entry are close, and I remember kind of hopping over clutter, like my body was on autopilot, just trying to get air and daylight. Outside, the daylight didn't even help much. I paced in front of the house, pretending I was fine, waiting for them to come up. But then that feeling hit. The one where you can feel eyes on you, even if you can't see anything. Top floor, left side window, and there was a white face staring down at me. Not a shadow that could be a curtain, not a trick of light. A face, pale, still, watching me like I was an insect under glass. I swear, my whole body snapped into panic. I screamed, just one ugly burst, and bolted straight into the woods like a kid. I didn't make it far, maybe half a minute, long enough to realize I was alone and breathing like I'd been running for my life because, honestly, I thought I had. I forced myself to walk back, slowly, trying to act like I didn't just lose it. When I looked back up at the window, gone. A few minutes later, the guys came up, laughing at first, until they saw my face. I told them exactly what happened. Nate got that stubborn, angry look and said we should go check upstairs. Owen, being Owen, started talking about breaking the window, just to prove nobody's in there. I didn't like that. I told them not to. But you know how it goes when you're young and someone's trying to feel brave. My protest got swallowed by their adrenaline. We stayed outside for a while after that, like we were daring the house to do something. Eventually, we decided to leave. My car was an old '98 Saturn coupe, nothing fancy, but it always started. Always. I turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. No dash lights. No interior lights. Just dead. Like the car had been unplugged from reality. At first, I assumed I'd done something stupid. Left a light on, left the key turned, something. But I knew I hadn't. We popped the hood, tried the basics, waited, tried again. Still nothing. And out there, service was garbage. The trees just swallowed the signal. So we sat near the car as the sky started dimming, trying to call anyone we could. And while we're doing that, Jess walks up and says, really quietly, "Look at the upstairs window, the top left. Tell me if you see anything." My stomach did that same drop again. I looked, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you what was there. Two huge, faint, dark red eyes. Not a whole face, not a head, just eyes, floating in the window like embers in smoke. They shifted slightly, like whatever it belonged to was breathing, like it was leaning in and out just a fraction. I told him, "Yeah, I see it." And he just stared at me, pale, and said, "I thought I was losing my mind." We kept looking back at the window while the others fought for signal, and the eyes didn't leave. They stayed there, unblinking, holding that spot like it owned it. Eventually, thank God, someone got through and a friend came to pick us up. But we still had to deal with my car. We didn't want it sitting right at the house, because if cops rolled up for any reason, we'd be done. So we pushed it, quietly, urgently, down the road and deeper into the woods to a little pull-off near a lake, where a tow truck could reach it later without parking right at the property. The next morning, I had it towed to my shop, and that's when the mechanic called me with a tone I'll never forget. He goes, "This is weird. Both fuse panels are blown, like everything. Not one fuse, not a couple, all of them. Every single fuse in both boxes. They had to replace the entire set, and even after that, they couldn't point to a normal electrical problem that would have caused it. No clear short, no obvious damage that explained the scale of it. I remember sitting there with the phone in my hand, just staring at the wall, feeling that same basement warning humming behind my eyes. Because I know what it felt like out there. I know what I saw. And I know what it felt like to be watched. But I never went back to that house. And here's the part that makes it worse, in a quieter way. I've always been sensitive to stuff. I can walk into certain places and feel the atmosphere shift, like emotions hang in the air. Sometimes I pick up on people's feelings before they even speak. I don't pretend I understand it. I just know it's real for me. A couple months later, Nate sent me a photo of the house, just casually, like he was reminiscing. And in one of the side windows, there were two small shadows, short, thin shapes, almost like children standing close together. Then he asked me if I remembered a little black box the guys had found that day, one that two of them wouldn't let anyone else open. He told me they ended up burning it. When I asked why, he wouldn't go into detail, just said it was kids' stuff, and that it was bad. His voice changed when he said it, like he regretted even bringing it up. And then he said something that made my stomach go cold all over again. He said he sometimes wondered if whoever owned that house had done horrible things to children, took them, documented it, and then made sure they never left. I didn't argue. I didn't try to reason it away, because the truth is, some places don't just feel abandoned. Some places feel like they're still holding on to what happened inside them. And that house felt like it was still watching. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something that still makes my stomach flip a little when I say it out loud. It started a while back, late spring, around the end of April, I think. Our baby boy, Milo, was only a few months old then, still in that phase where naps happen constantly and the whole day feels like a blur of bottles, laundry, and little squeaky yawns. One afternoon, maybe around 5-ish, my partner Tessa and I were out on the back patio making dinner, just grilling, trying to pretend we were normal adults for 10 minutes. We had the baby monitor sitting right there with us. Milo was upstairs in our room, dozing in his bassinet. He started to stir and fuss the way babies do, like he was revving up for a full cry. Tessa said she was going to run inside and use the bathroom before going up to get him. Totally normal. I was carrying a plate in through the kitchen when she stepped out of the hallway bathroom, and she just froze. Like, stopped dead, eyes wide, the kind of look where you instantly know something is wrong. I tried to lighten it, because that's what you do when you don't understand what you're seeing. I said something dumb like, "You know I live here too, right?" And she just whispered, "I saw a hand." I remember blinking at her like, "A hand? What do you mean, a hand?" She told me she'd glanced at the monitor, just a quick look, and saw a hand come into frame and touch Milo, like someone was settling him. And for one terrifying second, she assumed it was me, until she saw me right there in the kitchen, nowhere near the stairs. That's when the panic hit both of us at the exact same time. We ran upstairs, like actually sprinted. Checked the room, the closet, behind the curtains, everything. Nothing. No person. No weird noise. Milo was there, little face scrunched up, breathing normal, like nothing had happened. And I want you to understand, our house setup makes the "someone is secretly living here" theory feel impossible. We work from home. We've got 2 loud dogs that notice everything. There's no attic entry into the bedrooms, no hidden door, none of that. If someone was in our home, we would know. So for the next few weeks, I did what my brain always does. I tried to bulldoze it with logic. I told myself maybe the monitor glitched. Maybe it flashed an old image. Maybe the angle made a blanket look like fingers. Anything. But here's the thing. I'm picky about cameras. It's part of my job. And this monitor is live feed only. No recordings, no memory. When it loses signal, it doesn't stutter or smear. It just cuts to a blank, connection lost screen. We've used monitors like this for years with our older kid too, and I've never once seen it replay anything. So, as much as I wanted to file it away as a weird one-off, I couldn't quite do it. Then last night happened. It was one of those nights where you're half asleep, barely human. Milo had been sleeping in his crib in his own room, and we were in our bed. I remember the time because my eyes hit the clock right after. 3 a.m. exactly. I heard him cry through the monitor on my nightstand. Not just a whimper, an actual cry. I rolled over to nudge Tessa, but her side of the bed was empty. And as I turned back toward the monitor, I saw it. A hand slid into view from the edge of the frame. And I didn't even panic at first, because my brain went, "Oh, Tessa got up and went in there. Of course, that's what that is." But literally seconds later, the bathroom door in our bedroom opened, and Tessa walked out rubbing her eyes. She hadn't been in his room. And I swear to you, the way my whole body reacted, it was like someone dumped ice water into my chest. I sat up so fast my heart felt like it tripped over itself. I tried to speak and it came out broken, just, "Oh my God, I thought it was you." We ran across the house again, checked everything again. Milo was alone in his crib. No one else. No movement. No hiding place. Nothing. And that's the part that messes with me the most. It wasn't scary in the way you'd expect. It didn't feel aggressive. It didn't feel like something trying to hurt him. If anything, it looked gentle. Like whoever or whatever did it was trying to comfort my baby. But then you're left with this horrible question hanging in the air. If it's something not normal, why would it show itself at all? And why twice? We even have a second camera in the room, just a separate live view cam on a shelf, so it's not like there's only one device involved. And it wasn't a little floating light or a vague blur. It was a physical-looking hand. So now I'm sitting here, trying to keep my head on straight, trying not to spiral, trying to decide whether this is some bizarre technical explanation I haven't found yet, or something I don't have words for. And I keep coming back to the same thought over and over. If it's real, and if it's something, it doesn't seem cruel. It seems like it's watching over him. But still, I'd be lying if I said I'm not shaken. Hey, so I want to tell you about my kid, because this has been sitting in my chest for years. My daughter, her name's Luna, is 7 now. She's autistic and mostly communicates in short phrases, sometimes just single words, and sometimes with gestures that make perfect sense, but only if you already know her language. And ever since she was a baby, she's acted like the world has extra layers the rest of us can't see. When Luna was tiny, like still in the squishy baby phase, she'd just light up. She'd smile at empty corners, wave at nothing, giggle like someone was playing peekaboo with her, except there was nobody there. And as she got older, it didn't fade. It got more specific. As a toddler, she'd crawl and then toddle straight toward nothing, hands out, like she was chasing bubbles, like there were little moving targets floating around the living room. One time, this is one of the few times she managed to explain it out loud, she said, very calmly, "Blue lights, yellow lights," like it was the most obvious thing in the world. And here's the thing, when she has a meltdown, like a full sensory storm, she'll sometimes come out of it by tracking something with her eyes, something that isn't there for me. She'll be sobbing, overwhelmed, and then suddenly she's focused, following something across the room, breathing slowing down, like whatever she's watching is guiding her back. Other people have seen it too. My husband, Ethan, has watched her play like she's interacting with another kid. Not pretend play with dolls, like actual back and forth. She'll nod, shake her head, show a toy to empty air, even reach up like she's holding someone's hand while she runs. Her teacher mentioned it once, kind of gently, like she didn't want to spook me. Luna plays like there's a friend beside her, she said, like she's sharing. When Ethan asked Luna who she was playing with, Luna pointed at open space next to the couch and said, "That boy." Just that boy. No hesitation. Another time at school, her teacher asked, and Luna said, "Tinker." Then she added, "Like the flying one." I swear I felt my stomach drop. Not because it proved anything, but because she said it like she was naming someone everyone already knew. Most of that you could chalk up to imagination, a vivid inner world, an invisible friend, totally reasonable. But then there are the moments that don't sit neatly in that box. Like this one. My dad came over to visit. When he was getting ready to leave, Luna looked up from her little pile of blocks and said, "Pop goes in the blue car." We laughed, because my dad's car is white. Ours is dark gray. Outside the window, no blue car, nothing. 10 minutes later, my dad goes to start his car and it won't turn over. Dead. He ends up calling for a ride share. And tell me why the car that pulls up, right on time, bright as a children's book illustration, is blue. Or this, Luna's birthday last year. My in-laws gave her a gift bag with tissue paper and a bow, the whole thing. Luna took one look at it and frowned. Then she said, "Flower broken." She didn't want to open it, just stood there, stiff, like, nope. We coaxed her gently, thinking maybe she just didn't like surprises that day. Inside was a little tea set, porcelain, delicate, covered in tiny painted flowers. And one of the cups had a crack right through the center of a flower, like it had been split with a thin, precise line. No explanation. She'd tense up if you tried to guide her over it. And then, a year later, my younger kid, my son Jude, got sick and threw up all over that exact patch. Same place, like the carpet had been waiting. She did something similar with one of Ethan's shirts. A totally normal shirt, soft cotton, no weird texture, no strong smell, nothing. But if he wore it, Luna acted like he was radioactive. She'd back away, scrunch her face, hide behind furniture like she was avoiding a monster in a cartoon. Months later, Ethan is holding Jude while wearing that shirt, and Jude suddenly vomits all over Ethan's chest. It sounds funny when I say it like that, I know. Like, okay, maybe she's just got a sixth sense for puke-related disasters, but it kept happening in ways that made me feel watched. Like the universe was leaving little sticky notes only she could read. One day she asked our neighbor, Mr. Patel, "You fixed the window?" He laughed and said, "Which window?" Luna pointed, very specifically, at a single window on the side of his house, and she gave this expression like, obviously that one. There was nothing wrong with it. No crack, no loose frame, perfectly fine. A few weeks later, a soccer ball from the kids down the street hit that exact window and shattered it. But the part that really unravels me, the part I still don't know how to hold, is Grandma. When Luna was learning family words, it made sense at first. Mama, Dada, Nana, Pop, all that. Normal little kid stuff. Then she started saying, Grandma. And I froze the first time because my mom, my actual mom, disappeared when I was 12. She was never found, presumed dead. It's one of those losses that doesn't finish happening. It just keeps echoing. Here's the thing. We don't talk about her as grandma in our house. Not because it's forbidden, just because it hurts, and also because Luna never met her. We refer to her by her first name when we have to, or I'll say, my mom, quietly, like I'm trying not to disturb something. Luna has never been told about her. Not in detail, not in bedtime story form, not in a way that would give her an image to latch onto. But Luna would mention grandma like she was someone current. She played with me, Luna would say. I'd ask, carefully, do you mean Nana? Meaning Ethan's mom. And Luna would shake her head hard. No, grandma. And then she started drawing her. Always the same hair, dark, curly, the same shape it used to sit around my mother's face. And once she drew her wearing a shirt with a pattern I recognized so fast it made my throat close. Because it was the exact color and style my mom was wearing the last day anyone saw her. And I'm sitting there staring at a crayon drawing made by a child who, by all logic, should not have that detail in her head. I've tried to explain it away. I've tried so hard. I've told myself she overheard something, saw a photo, picked up a clue I didn't notice. But the truth is, I don't think she did. And I'm not someone who grew up believing in ghosts or signs or any of that. I'm the person who rolls their eyes at spooky stories and then feels guilty about it later. I like explanations that can be measured. But Luna keeps handing me moments that don't fit into the measuring cup. So I'm left in this strange place where I'm not fully convinced of anything, but I'm also not able to dismiss her either. Not even fear. Not even certainty. Just the sense that maybe the world is bigger than I thought. And my kid can see farther into it than I can.